A mentor's job has nothing to do with war, so he tried to live calm, quiet, and untouched until the day everything shattered. The boy flashed a homemade weapon at a massive orc charging to strike, his eyes snapping back to the calm life he'd lost as rage burst out through his shout. "I can't shake the memory of two figures, a man and a woman, begging you for forgiveness because they couldn't take him with them on the journey." The couple stormed out, and all that remained was a stretched-out shadow on the ground. They told him straight up, working with old stuff won't carry them through the battles ahead. Then the man waved goodbye to Ryu and begged him to stay. He wanted him to keep taking care of the animals. The boy just shoots his hand out and asks them, "Why are you doing this?" He pleads for them to stop and wait, because if they're fighting, he wants to join in too. Suddenly the boy snaps awake in his bed, arms stretched out like he was caught mid-dream, and the blazing sun pours into the room, blasting the rest of his sleep away. Turns out every last memory was nothing but a dream. Meanwhile, Ryu's home sits tucked among mountains and rolling hills, and his farm is packed with all kinds of animals he lovingly tends every day. The boy dashed outside to feed the animals, and right after he finished, the cow started rubbing fresh grass against him, like it wanted attention, so he leaned in and scratched their chins, and then out of nowhere, a girl named Ryu called his name. Cradling a cat in her arms, the girl tiptoes toward the boy, eyes shining as she thanks him from the bottom of her heart, because it was Ryu who finally brought her cat back. As the girl stepped closer, the boy gently ruffled the animals' heads, grinning like he couldn't believe it, because his girl's pet finally bounced back and was healthy again. The girl notices that even after becoming a mentor, he can still heal animals, and when she points it out, he flashes a bright, cheerful smile. Only thing is, he's secretly confused, because he never really wanted the mentor role in the first place. Turns out the church picks your profession for you, and if you're a mentor, you can connect with animals way easier. Trouble is, two of his childhood buddies didn't just grow up normally. They became a young hero and a magician instead. That young heroine can become a real hero, so she wastes no time. She hits the books on the path of knights and pushes her training even harder, right away. And that mage, yeah, he's a support specialist, trained his magic at the church, and once we all hit adulthood, my two friends and I kicked off our journey. Ryu wrestles with the thought, feeling like he's crawling while his friends sprint ahead, until a girl holding a cat yanks his attention away again. She was fuming, he drifted into his own thoughts and didn't listen to a word she said. Then he snapped back, blurted out an apology, and turned to the guest. "So, what were we talking about, and where did we leave off?" The girl warns him straight up. This city's buzzing with rumors, and his friend should be back any minute. The boy yawned with a dreamy sweetness, clearly running on fumes, and decided it was break time. He stood among the trees, stretched hard, and lifted both arms high to the sky. The wind softly ruffled his obedient hair, and Ryu couldn't believe it. After that dream, his friends came back, just like that. Ryu suddenly realized they'd always been together. Then, boom, he was left alone, so he threw himself into his profession and befriended a whole bunch of dogs and cats in the new city, playing with them and caring for them like it was his second heartbeat. The boy pressed his hand to his head and dared to dream he'd conquer Fenrir, so he could stride beside his friends and stay right by their side, but deep down, he knew that dream was hopeless, and it simply wasn't possible. Suddenly, an enraged growl erupts from the bushes behind him, so loud it freezes him. He can't help but wonder what's out there. Ryu insists there's no one supposed to be in this forest. With shaky care, he pushes the branches apart with his hands and calls out, "Is someone there?" His eyes popped wide with shock, and just like that he spotted smooth fur moving in the grass, because a wolf sat right there in the bushes, staring him down like it knew exactly what he was. Ryu couldn't stop staring at that gorgeous wolf. He was blown away by how unreal it looked, and he still can't believe what he's seeing when, out of nowhere, he spots its back leg snagged in a trap. Sharp iron spikes tore into Ryu's wolf's hind paw, and the pain hit hard, so Ryu immediately bolted over to the wolf and demanded he hold on, because help was coming fast. The wolf hated the help and started snarling like it wanted to tear the boy apart. Then the moment Ryu stretched out his hand, it clamped down and bit him hard. Ryu yanked his hand free from the animal's grip and pleaded for it to calm down, grabbing the furious wolf by the scruff as it thrashed and fought tooth and nail. Yet he still managed to pull the trap off its hind leg. The wolf keeps its eyes locked on the boy, leaning in with curiosity. Then Ryu blurts that they need to pause for a second because he's got a potion with him. The wolf doesn't move, just waits and watches like a hunter, while the boy digs through his backpack, searching for something. The boy dabs a potion on the animal's back leg, swears that everything's going to be okay now, and watches it ready itself to run fast, steady, and full of confidence. The boy sprang up, ready to head back to work, and right as Ryu turned around, the animals vanished like smoke. Then the boy grinned and hurried home. The night sprawled out like a void. No lantern, no glow, nothing to chase the dark away. Only the stars and moon lit the streets, stealing that shine from the sun. Ryu tossed and turned, staring at the ceiling, wondering if that wolf finally found its way back to its pack, because deep down, he was proud he'd stayed by the beast and helped it make it home. The boy yawns, smiling sweetly as he covers his mouth. Then the realization hits. It's already late, and he's gotta hit the bed so he can sleep well. Suddenly, a wolf barges into the room, slips right up beside the boy's head, throws its mouth wide, and greets him like an old friend. Then it declares, with excitement, that tonight is absolutely beautiful. Ryu snaps his head around in pure horror and stares at the creature, repeating his last words. Then it hits the boy. This is the very wolf he saved earlier that day, and the moment Ryu starts to piece it together, he realizes the terrifying truth: the wolf can talk. The boy huddled on the bed, convinced it wasn't a wolf at all. Maybe it was some wild monster, because it didn't just understand human words, it could speak them back. While the boy tried to wrap his head around what was happening, the monster prowled the room and declared it had questions for him. So the boy swallowed his fear and promised he'd listen and answer if he could. The wolf jumps back in shock and blurts that the boy is seriously honest, and Ryu only glances away, nodding like he knows the danger. Because the second anything goes wrong, that beast's razor jaws snap shut on him in an instant. The animal leans its head to the side, and in that instant the wolf fires off the question: why did Ryu help it, and why did he burn his own potion on it? The man freezes, totally lost, and scrambles for what he's even supposed to say. So yeah, he couldn't just say, "I was only trying to help," because nobody would swallow that nonsense, and one lie could snap the whole thing open in seconds. Suddenly, the she-wolf snapped her jaws open and demanded the boy answer right now. She had zero patience to let Ryu sit there and sort out his thoughts. With shaking hands, the boy finally mustered the courage to blurt out his confession. He helped the she-wolf because he couldn't help it. She was just too beautiful. The she-wolf froze at his words, because she never thought she'd hear a response like that. Then the boy stepped in and insisted he couldn't stand the idea of such a beautiful she-wolf vanishing like that. The she-wolf erupts into loud laughter, like it finally clicks for her. And yeah, she gets it now. That boy wasn't messing around. He wanted her to survive, so he busted her out of the trap to make sure she lived. She throws her paw over her nose, grins, and insists she's still super into the guy. Then laughs, says she was just fooling around with those things, and somehow he stepped in to help her. The boy lets out a breath and turns his gaze away, because he gets it now. She doesn't need his help at all, not this moment. But the she-wolf comes back to Ryu, and this time her interest is real. She straight up admits she likes him and asks what his name is. Ryu hesitates, but she assures him he has nothing to fear, and then he finally tells her his name. The she-wolf growls the boy's strange name again and again, then leans in like she's savoring the fact that it's truly rare, before she declares, "From this moment on, you're mine." And the boy's protests, she cuts them off cold. The boy didn't fully catch what the she-wolf was hinting at, so he figured he must have misheard her, until the she-wolf snapped in and swore he'd heard her perfectly. She declared that from this moment on, Ryu would be her pet. Then the guy's jaw dropped, and he demanded, "Wait, are you seriously talking about me?" Suddenly, the she-wolf ballooned to impossible size. Her head punched right through the ceiling, and splinters exploded across the room as she roared for Ray to come closer. Then she clamped the boy in her jaws. The boy swears the wolf doesn't just talk, it can swell up bigger, and in his gut he knows it's Fenrir. Ryu presses her for answers, and she's stunned he's finally clocked it now. The boy begged her to wait just a moment so she could hand him at least one bag, and soon enough they were deep in the forest. Then the Fenrir girl declared they'd arrived and dumped him straight onto the ground. Ryu's mind flashes back to those moments, charging through the forest on all fours, on paws, pure nightmare fuel, because he had to ride in the beast's jaws the whole blasted way. The boy lifts his head, and boom, tree crowns spread over the whole sky, swallowed the view. Dazzling sunlight hits his eyes, lighting up a world he's never seen before. The boy ended up in a cramped pit by the hill where one of the Fenrirs lurked, and the same beasts ringed the hill, staring him down like they were hunting his next move. From the hilltop, the watcher stared as Fenrir, and Ryu closed in his eyes, widened in shock, when a whole pack of Fenrir materialized right in front of him. There were about 20 or 30 Fenrirs in that pack, and the one in the middle towered over the rest, so the man figured that had to be their leader. Ryu trembles with raw fear, clinging to the hope that he'll somehow claw his way out of this forest alive. Out of nowhere, Fenrir, the one everyone calls the leader, whips around and demands, "So who did you bring into our home?" to his daughter. Ryu realizes the she-wolf who dragged him here is the pack leader's daughter, and she tells him she's been into him, so she brought him straight to the den. Her father snaps into a scolding rant, telling his daughter that dragging someone into their pack and the forest isn't something to do just because you're mad. The leader snapped at the main character, demanding to know how he even knows her daughter. The boy blurts that he works on a ranch, and the leader snaps, asking it again. Then Ryu steps in, explains the truth, and says the leader's daughter was trapped, but he just rescued her. Fenrir's leader kicked off the explanation, bragging that their pack could smash any trap with ease, until Ryu finally admitted the truth. His daughter wasn't a threat at all, she was just playing around with them. The leader frowns hard because she's stuck doing the assignment all over again, and the daughter whispers to her father that the person she brought is a mentor, at least that's what she insists. Maybe Ryu can step in and save their grandfather. The wolf snaps back to the boy and demands, "Is it true?" The pack leader dodges the question and says their grandfather lived a long, long life, then admits it's probably no one's going to help him figure out this mess. Right now, the daughter leans in and whispers to Ryu that her grandfather's condition is slipping. Magic power is running out, and she's convinced it's partly her fault. He doesn't fully get it, but he can feel it. Someone close to him has zero plans to break free, and he was dragged in just to be useful. Got it, so the boy trots back to the leader, and Ryu snaps that he needs to stop chewing out his kid like that. Ryu begs to finally meet his grandfather, because with time running out fast, Fenrir has literally nothing left to lose. Suddenly, the leader snaps in, shuts the boy down with contempt, and barks for him to be quiet, so the boy whips around and tells him, "I was brought here to help myself." Rias keeps the conversation going and bluntly tells him, "If this is about age, I'm out. I can't help. But if it's anything else, I'll probably find a way." Right then, the chief's daughter stares at the boy, shocked. The leader stared down at the boy and nodded, granting his request, letting him meet the elder, though he grumbled that it was still a pointless drain on time and energy. They close in on the spot where the roots split and branch underground. Right between them sits a sofa, and sprawled there is a painfully ancient representative of the Fenrir lineage. His granddaughter steps up to greet him and speaks to her grandfather with full respect, like he's the elder she truly honors. The old Fenrir barely cracks his heavy eyelids, lets out a quiet, "Why are you here?" And just as the girl is about to spill it all, the boy cuts her off again, same hand gesture, like he's shutting the world up. Ryu thrusts out his hand toward the elder, and the man bursts with joy, saying he's thrilled to finally meet him. Ryu tells him it was the elder's granddaughter who dragged him here, and now the boy mentors others. He swears he came to help cure Fenrir's sickness. The old Fenrir fixes his eyes on the boy with sharp distrust, demands to know what he does for a living, and you can tell he's not convinced the kid can help him at all. But Ryu swears it's totally doable. Still, there's no way he's doing it for free after that comment. The local Fenrirs were stunned out of their minds. They could barely keep their mouths shut, burning with shock and outrage. From the sidelines, furious barking erupted, like, how dare he act like that toward their leader? And yeah, some folks even started whispering that he might be trying to fool Fenrir. At that exact moment, the old man strode up to the boy and demanded to know if he could really help him, and the boy nodded, staring him down like he'd never blink. Fenrir nodded and told the boy, "I believe in you," while Ryu pressed a hand to his chest and swore they'd wrap this up fast. But in return, Reap turns to Henry and demands one thing. He wants a favor so he can become even stronger. The elder can't stop asking why. Reap just smirks and says it's because he's just like his grandson. The boy tells her straight up. She leaned on him because she couldn't heal her grandfather on her own, couldn't even picture how to pull it off, so she finally went to the man for help. That's why he refuses to risk hurting the people he loves ever again, because in that instant, he remembers the two friends who trailed him and the outstretched hand he offered them back then. The girl Fenrir snapped in shock at the boy's words, and the elder nodded as he accepted the boy's offer, then demanded his identity and exactly what the boy needed from him. The boy shrugged like it was all a piece of cake, started sliding his glove off, and pointed out that your forearm sat closer to Fenrir. Then he leaned in and dared you to bite him and drink his blood. The leader snapped that the whole thing was pure nonsense, then flat out refused to believe that an ordinary person's blood could change a damn thing. Even with all the griping from everyone around him, the elder still said yes. He rose up, grabbed the boy's hand, and sank his teeth into it. A giant burst of dust and blazing light erupted around them, and the Fenrir crew had to slam their hands into the ground just to keep from getting blown away. The elder's expression snapped, and the boy clamped down on his hand like his life depended on it. Then the elder released him, and Ryu thrust the grip right in front of himself. He didn't expect it to hurt this bad, and the girl's eyes widened, suddenly dying to know what the boy had just pulled off. She still can't figure out where her mentor is pulling all that magical power from, and it's driving her crazy with curiosity. Good thing the guy instantly knows exactly what she's wondering. She's convinced Ryu's magic hits harder than the hero's, and she's got reasons, because Ryu himself spills it when he says he constantly wraps his arm in bandages. Ryu's body is crammed with too much magic, and if he doesn't let it out, he'll straight up explode. The girl snaps at the boy that if he's too strong and it doesn't go his way, things could spiral into disaster fast. Ryu says most strength is forged in training, but here's the twist. He was born outrageously strong, and as the years roll on, his power just keeps escalating. Honestly, he's like a walking treasure. The girl gets pulled off course by the older one, spins back to her grandfather, and bam, Grandpa's packed with strength again. Old Fenrir bounds in with a joyful tail wag, so different now that he's almost unrecognizable, and everyone else realizes he's already fighting back and feeling way better. She tiptoes up to her grandpa, presses her head to his, and he snaps back to that promise with the boy, then orders him to start training with his pack before his strength fully kicks in. The boy blurts out, shocked, "Is it really possible to train in Fenrir Forest?" And then a furious growl erupts behind him. Nope, a human can never join the pack. The elder thanks the boy with a heartfelt sincerity for his help. Yet outside, the other Fenrir's bitter screams still cut through, calling this man weak, untrustworthy, and painfully inexperienced. Out of nowhere, someone from the sidelines pushed for getting rid of the guy, and the elder snapped, demanding every Fenrir fall silent. Then his fury erupted as he barked, "Tell me, does your own family really want to take on the very person who saved your life?" Suddenly, every single person dropped their heads, clamped their ears to their necks, and started whining like the world was ending. Ryu felt that crushing pressure hit him hard, only he couldn't even figure out why he was panicking, because it wasn't aimed at him at all. Ryu leans in close and demands who her grandfather really is. She grins and says he's the very first Fenrir, the ancestor of every Fenrir that came after. The elder leans in and asks what he wants to do first, and the young man shoots back, "I want to learn how to control magical energy, better than anything else." The elder knows the truth, power is the only way through this. In this cursed forest, the boy can't stay the same. He'll get tougher, he'll push past his limits, and he'll learn how to command his own abilities. The boy hears the leader's message and realizes it's about surviving the chaos inside himself, but then fear hits him. Will he ever be able to stand with his friends again? But the boy digs deep, finds his courage, and says he trusts the elder. Then the elder and the Fenrir girl shut their eyes and nod, like they've just been waiting for that moment. Suddenly he snaps something into his mouth, rushes up, and shoves it into the guy's hands. Then a massive fang flashes on the guy's arm. The elder beams and declares, "This is my tusk," and the boy freezes, stunned, because in his hands is the real tusk of Fenrir, the legendary elder himself. The elder tells the boy this trophy will help him reign in his magical power. Then out of nowhere, a girl from the Fenrir clan barrels up to Ryu and promises, "I'll take care of you during training." Ryu tightens his grip on the fang with total confidence, telling his friends to hold up while he charges ahead, because he's coming straight back to catch them, no matter what it takes, so he can grow even stronger for that dream. Ryu barely slips out of the way of a brutal strike, then grinds his training hard inside the Fenrir forest, battling those ruthless evil orcs. Rage explodes in an orc as he wildly lunges at Ryu, saliva spraying from his gaping mouth, but Ryu just calmly stares him down, because for about a month he's been training and he's locked in. Ryu can't stop smiling when the goblin lunges onto the guy, flings its club around, and goes wild. The orcs creep in slow, giving Ryu just enough time, so he slips aside fast and dodges the monster's brutal heavy swing. Ryu suddenly slashes off the orc's arm, then the beast shrieks like it's being ripped apart, and his next hit slams into its legs. Ryu already knows, if it topples off balance, he can behead it in an instant. The boy wiped the sweat off his forehead, grinning at a job well done, then spun around and demanded to know what's going on with Fenrir's girl. The creature lounged on a heap of orcs, yawning like it owned the place, and it wasn't attacking at all. It was just biding its time for Ryu to finally finish the monster. Ryu had been locked in with one orc for ages, and she could see it. The boy couldn't stop wondering how Fenrir swallowed up so many orcs, because Fenrir was straight up unbelievable. Fenrir and Ryu agreed to make a quick stop in the trees, then sparked a little fire and threw juicy, mouth-watering meat on it to roast. Ryu realizes the orcs are already among the weakest monsters, yet he still tears through them anyway. Fenrir cheers him on, insisting this means he's only gotten stronger. On day one, the guy just kept fleeing. Ryu straight up admits it, and even after a whole month of training, he can barely even keep up with a monster like that. To boost his endurance, Ryu sprinted again and again away from the Fenrirs that hunted him through the trees, day after day, until survival in that forest became his skill. And right near the whole time, the Fenrir girl kept pace, watching his training like she was waiting to see what he'd become. To build his immunity, he snatches those poisonous berries again, chewing through danger, because if he wants to get stronger, he's got to learn to adapt to anything. Ryu stared at the tusk the elder handed him, and it clicked instantly. Everything he'd achieved came from this gift alone, because the tusk was so huge it could work like a razor-sharp knife. The Fenrir girl lifted her chin with pride and nodded at the boy's words, then declared that her grandpa is straight-up incredible. Rue thinks it's a great sign that the elder's granddaughter comes right to his side and takes care of him herself. But the girl Fenrir snaps her head down and pins her ears back, clearly crushed, because she still doesn't have her name. For monsters, a name isn't just a label, it's stitched into their soul, so naming one demands a shocking amount of magical power. But the moment the elder tried to name his granddaughter, his mana vanished completely, and he hit a dead stop. The boy gently stroked Fenrir's head and begged her not to get upset, and Ryu grinned so brightly that he swore the elder would name his granddaughter. She just needed a little patience. The boy blurts that he can't bear to look at her hurting face, and the girl from Fenrir stares at Ryu with pure hope blazing in her eyes. Suddenly, a Fenrir lunged out of the bushes and demanded to be heard, calling for the elder's granddaughter. The girl snapped, "What happened?" And the creature replied that he had come with a message from the chief. Without warning, Fenrir snapped his head toward Ryu and wrinkled his nose, letting out a disgusted snarl. The elder drops some serious news about the boy's training, so he tells him to rush over ASAP to hear the leader's message, only to find Ryu instantly getting hit with icy treatment from the entire pack. The elder looms beside the tree, waiting for the boy, and when Ryu calls out to the old Fenrir, he greets him like he's home. Then the leader admits the boy showed up fast. The boy says someone clearly told him to hurry up and listen closely to the elder, and he grinned, asking them not to bother with his colleagues. The elder claims most folks from Fenrir think retraining is a total waste. Then the guy realizes he didn't get what Fenrir even meant, so he straight up asks again. The elder leans in with deadly seriousness and tells Ryu he's been setting up a trial just for him. Ryu has to pass, prove his strength, and earn his place in the Fenrir pack. The boy flinched at the older one's pressure at first, then snapped into focus, met his gaze with confidence, and demanded to know what he had to do to earn his place in the pack. The elder talks with deadly seriousness. Fenrir shoots back that Ryu has to beat the demonic rooster by himself, because this is his test. That demonic rooster is a Class B monster, so brutal that even a full squad of adventurers can barely take it down, and charging in solo is straight-up suicide. Right then, the elder's granddaughter slips in behind the boy and asks her grandfather, "Can I help him with the task?" The elder tells Ryu the whole trial boils down to one thing. He has to defeat the monster with his own hands, so nobody is allowed to lift a finger to help. The elder clocked it instantly. Ryu still hadn't truly grasped what Fenrir's fang could do, and the second the boy stared down at his trophy, his face lit up with pure shock. Fenrir declares the fangs can smash through anything in their way, even magic itself. Ryu then reveals he's holding the fang of the oldest Fenrir, and if the boy wants it, Ryu will back him up with it. The old man grins and tells Aryus that with this, the demonic rooster can't touch the boy at all. Yet Aryus just scratches his head, totally lost, and can't wrap his mind around what Fenrir means. The elder reassures him there's nothing wrong with not knowing anything yet. The trial kicks off at sunset, so for now, he's got to rest up and recharge. The sun drops behind the mountain, and the bright rays fade off the treetops one by one. Then, out of nowhere, the monster's paw slams down to the ground. The elder's granddaughter and Ryu tiptoe out from behind the bush, holding their breath as they carefully study the monster. That demonic rooster is absolutely gigantic. Most of it looks like a normal rooster, but instead of a tail, a massive snake coils behind it, and it stalks innocent animals like prey. Then bam, it snaps open its eyes and floods everything with a blinding flash. The poor creature that was clawing its way out of the monster screamed one last squeak. Then, starting from its back legs, it froze solid into stone. That demonic rooster came down like a wrecking ball, ruthlessly stomping the animal sculpture until, in the blink of an eye, it was nothing but stone fragments and dust. And Ryu, watching it happen, realizes this time they're fighting uphill with everything against them. This monster can freeze a person into stone with one blazing glance. Its stare is poisonous, and even its rooster tail is deadly. But it's not invincible. It only sees a tight strip straight ahead, and it can't fly. The elder's granddaughter asks the boy if he's all right, and Ryu brushes her off, saying he's got no choice, period. The boy marched right past the bushes and headed straight for the enemy, and Fenrir's granddaughter called after him, wishing him luck and begging him to be careful. The boy ducked behind a tree, praying the monster wouldn't spot him, then gripped the elder Fenrir's fang like a weapon. While Ryu knew charging the demon rooster head-on was a bad idea, so he had to rip into the snake creeping right up behind him. The boy suddenly lunged forward, and while the snake's gaze was elsewhere, he set himself to strike. The second the snake spotted the boy, it struck and ended it in one deadly blow. So Ryu was absolutely thrilled because he finally carved out a piece of the monster. Ryu didn't even pause. he sprinted at full speed straight for the monster's claws, because they had to strike fast and pin the beast before it could move. Suddenly, the demonic rooster screamed into the night and jabbed Ryu away with a claw, and right then, the boy knew this was never going to be that easy. The rooster jerks its head side to side, like it can't find Ryu anywhere. Then the man's gut drops, because he realizes he might have stumbled straight into the monster's blind spot. The kid bursts out of the bushes ready to strike, but right as he lunges, the rooster slips away like it knew his move. Ryu didn't get it at first, until he snapped his gaze upward and saw it. That demonic rooster could fly, and it rocketed into the clouds, stretching those massive wings wide as it soared. He never saw this coming. He was certain that demonic rooster couldn't fly, and now he's standing there realizing he's totally at the monster's mercy. The rooster flaps higher, wings spreading wide, while the boy stands there, just waiting for it to drop down. But Ryu can't even finish his sentence. Right then, the demonic rooster snaps its wings shut, and a brutal burst of wind slams him back, scattering wood everywhere. The elder's granddaughter snaps, asking if the boy's okay, all nerves. Then Ryu slowly pushes himself up and tells her, "Calm but steady, I'm fine." Turns out this wind is pure danger. It can slice trees into razor-straight chunks, and Ryu starts to suspect the demonic rooster is behind the magic. Ryu wrestles with what to do in this brutal mess, because that rooster isn't budging an inch. Then it hits the guy. If only he had magic that could reach from a distance, this whole nightmare would be over in seconds. Ryu stares at the tusk, totally hooked, wondering what secret inside it could give him the edge to win. Then it hits him. He remembers magic. Ryu snaps back to what the elder warned. Fenrir's fangs can smash anything in their way, magic included, and now that very fang sits in the boy's hands. That trophy could save him when it matters most. If he needs it, he'll have it. And the boy replays the demon rooster's aerial attack in his mind, every single detail sharp as a blade. The monster snaps its wings open again, ready to strike once more. Then Ryu rockets upward and lands right in front of it, slipping every attack with razor-sharp timing. He knows if he sits still, the bills will crush him, so there's no choice left. Ryu clenches his fists and decides he's got to try something, for real. The boy digs in like he'll never move, thrusts the Fenrir fang straight ahead, and suddenly a blinding glow erupts around him, while the elder's granddaughter realizes his mana has surged. Ryu locks in on her magic. She summons that power to surge through the claw, then commands the mana to pool at its tip. The next heartbeat, a demonic rooster lunges in like lightning, giving her zero time to breathe. Now the mana is piled up to the breaking point, and it's finally time to unleash it. Ryuz swung his fang, and a brutal wave tore out, slashing the air like the monster's own attacks. The impact smashed the demonic rooster midair, and in the next heartbeat, the monster got wiped out, its broken body parts crashing down to the ground. The boy couldn't even wrap his head around it. He'd actually won. He stared at the defeated monster. Then the elder's granddaughter burst out from the bushes and cheered him on like it was the best day ever, thrilled that he'd pulled off the trial. Ryu tried to back Fenrir's words, but then he suddenly crumpled to the ground. Fenrir's face snapped with panic, because something had to be seriously wrong with the boy. Honestly, he's so drained he can't even stay upright anymore. His legs just give out. Ryu apologized for the way things went in Fenrir's, then asked the elder for permission to rest just a bit. The elder's granddaughter was shocked that Ryu chose to crash here, but she didn't argue. She agreed. The boy can't force out a single word anymore, thinking, maybe now I'll finally rest in peace and speak to the elder. Then, right out of nowhere, he feels a woman's hand softly pressing on his head. My eyes are already fighting to stay open, but I can still faintly make out a girl's silhouette through the blur, and the second I see her, Ryu instantly panics, because there's nobody here but him. His thoughts start spilling out and won't settle. His eyelids drag lower and lower, and the moment he fights off one last thought, he finally crashes into sleep. The girl beside you finally let her shoulders drop, and right there, the elder watched it all unfold with sharp eyes. Then he nodded and praised the boy, because now he could join their pack without a single worry. After Ryu crushed the demon rooster, the Fenrirs stuck around way more, and the little kids kept dragging him into playtime, while the grown-ups hauled them off to hunt and stacked up all kinds of food for everyone. Ryu thrusts his hands forward and tells Fenrir to hold up for a second. Right behind him, the elder's granddaughter steps in, and she immediately realizes Fenrir is all in on Ryu now. The boy says the pack members won't leave him alone at all now, and the elder's granddaughter doesn't see it as a bad thing, because he passed the test and earned his place in the pack. The boy realizes things are going his way, but not everyone in the pack welcomes the newcomer. Meanwhile, the pack's leader crouches behind a tree, glaring at you with pure anger. Out of nowhere, the pack leader gets shut up and soothed by his wife. She slaps a heavy paw on Fenrir's head, and tears into her husband for setting a rotten example for the kids. Ryu studies the picture and grins, so the mother wolf really is nearby. Then he whispers to the elder's granddaughter that her mom is incredibly strict, and the girl shoots back that her mother holds a huge rank in the pack. Turns out my mom's got that huge status because she's the daughter of the elder Fenrir. Ryu stares at his ripped sleeve and realizes his clothes are totally shot, so he's gotta hit the city and grab something new, fast. The girl from Fenrir can't stop wondering why Ryu won't wear the harvested monster skins instead of plain clothes, but Ryu just shrugs it off and admits he can't sew those things himself since he doesn't have the skills. You're short on cash for new clothes, so you're forced to head into the city anyway. Then the elder's granddaughter leans in and says you should ask her grandfather about it. Ryu nods and heads straight for the elder. Then bam, a tough leader blocks his path, the elder's granddaughter's father. He snaps orders through clenched teeth, demanding Ryu turn back and not set foot in the city. The leader clocks what this guy is trying to do, snitch about their shelter, and he orders the elder to shut it down, no letting him go anywhere. Then the mother spots it too, and her anger flares because her husband is slipping right back into his old habits. Ryu realizes the leader's right. If anyone cracks the pack's location, the whole crew is going to be thrown into real danger. You ask the elder, is there another way to reach the city? And the granddaughter snapped that the boy can't go alone, he needs someone to walk with him. The elder nodded right away, agreeing with her, and promised that this way would be far safer. Suddenly, Grandma Fenrir whips around to her husband and asks, is there anyone in our pack who's got what it takes? The girl beams the second she sees her grandmother, and then the older man's wife turns to him, pressing the question, does he really not trust this man at all? The elder nods along with Grandma Fenrir, then whips his gaze to Ryu and says he'll personally introduce him to the dwarf. Dwarves are no joke. Give them the right materials, and they'll forge and sew pretty much anything. In the kingdom, the elder knows a dwarf who owes him favors, so when Ryu marches up and says he's sent by Elder Fenrir, the dwarf steps in without hesitation. Ryu flashes a grin and thanks the elder. Fenrir's leader snapped at the elder, saying the trip to Ryu would bulldoze straight through a crowd, but the elder only grinned, then said he'd send his daughter with Ryu. Everyone there froze, stunned by the sudden wild plan. The old man knows the time has come to show his granddaughter the big wide world, and he's putting his trust in you. The boy's totally okay with you tagging along as her companion. The Fenrir girl's cheeks flared red as she spun away from Ryu, and her father, the chief, snapped that she wasn't allowed to step out into the world, especially not with Ryu. Right when he barked the order, his wife lightly slapped his chin. Mom leans in and asks what's wrong, and Ryu treats her daughter like a treasure, right in front of Grandma, who watches from the sidelines in total silence, saying nothing at all. Ryu paused for a beat, staring at Fenrir like he couldn't believe just how fiercely that love burned for him. The elder glances around one last time, then heads out, because he's about to teach the boy a little magic, and that magic will let the kid sell what he harvests to earn real money. At first, Ryu was freaking out, but now his heart finally lifts. He's buzzing with curiosity about what's waiting for them next. Grandma Fenrir leans in and grills Ryu. Does he remember everything, and did he bring it with him? Ryu nods, and right nearby his mother is still working to calm her husband, the Fenrir's leader. Thanks to the elder, he soaked up a ton of new knowledge about materials and finally mastered the treasury's magic. Now he has to rush toward the land of the dwarves. Ryu swivels around and demands to know where his friend is, and Fenrir's grandmother snaps, hold on a little longer, because a huge surprise is about to hit you. The elder strides up to the boy and thanks him for his patience, while a slender, beautiful girl with wolf ears stands right beside him. She peeks at Ryu with bashful eyes, like she's holding her breath to see what he'll do. The boy was blown away the second he saw her beauty, and he couldn't stop wondering where she'd come from. Then the girl snapped her hand over her mouth, pressed her ears tight to her head, and asked him to share her impressions all over again. Ryu freezes because he can't place where this girl knows him from, and that voice sounding so familiar is freaking him out. Ryu tries to figure out who it is, while the girl gently holds her grandmother's paw, and oh man, she's bursting with joy because she made it happen. The grandmother beams and praises her, bragging that now, nobody in the crowd even recognizes her. After the demon rooster fight, Ryu remembers seeing a girl, and the boy's pretty sure it was her. She then tells him the truth. She's been training for ages. It all started because she couldn't shake the dream of traveling with Ryu. Before that, she struggled to stay herself, but her mother and grandmother's advice steadied her and helped her power through every single struggle. Out of nowhere, an old man pops up beside the boy and demands to speak, asking Ryu to name his granddaughter, and the kid is left completely stunned. Ryu leans in and asks the elder if he'll let the boy sign a contract with his granddaughter, and when the elder nods, He does it because he's convinced the boy can pull it off. Turns out he's got to give her a name and sign a dating contract with her. And yeah, it actually pays off because it lets them share their thoughts too. For him, this deal is straight up a win. Grandma Fenrir leans in and tells Ryu not to worry, because her granddaughter wants it just as badly as he does. The grandma keeps going, saying her granddaughter has a debt to this boy, so she demands, "What's your name?" Then she leans in and swears she's been with her granddaughter for ages. She trusts this boy completely. Plus, my granddaughter's totally cool with it too. Right then, the Fenrir girl quietly bowed her head and waited, staring right at the boy for his answer. The boy nods and agrees to sign Fenrir's contract, and his grandmother lights up with joy, thanking him over and over for saying yes. Ryu locks eyes with the girl standing inches from him. The eagle urges him to begin. She nods in agreement, and Ryu lifts his hand to touch her forehead. The boy realizes it's time to slide her a contract, and the girl nods yes. Then he has to brand her with a brand new name, right as a light ignites from his hand, flooding over her face and making every feature pop. When the magic crests between them, the boy blurts out Lur. He snaps his eyes open and tells her it's done over. The girl spins away and then repeats her brand new name. Ryu's stomach sank, convinced she'd hate the name Lur, until he finally realized it fit her perfectly. The girl grins, shuts her eyes with pure peace, and tells him she loves her name, then thanks him like it means everything. He lets out a breath of pure relief, and a grin cracks across his face. Grandpa Fenrir slides up beside him. The pack elder leans in and asks if it all went smoothly. He just nods. Then, out of nowhere, Lur snatches Rue's hand and demands they hit the road for their journey. The girl grabs the boy's hand and pulls him along, flashing a sharp goodbye to her grandfather, grandmother, and mother. While, out in the distance, her father watches with quiet satisfaction because she didn't even say goodbye to him. Then the boy and girl strike out together on the road ahead. Lur gawked at a whole spread of gorgeous landscapes, got hit hard by the towering mountains, and then, boom, the shashlik they served her tasted insanely good, before she finally curled up and fell asleep with her head against the guy's shoulder by the crackling campfire. The girl rushes back to him and blurts out about the dwarves' homeland. He tells her it's a settlement right by the mines, packed with craftsmen, where you can score terrifying weapons and stunning armor. On top of everything about the armor and weapons, he also drops this bombshell. They're going to show up any minute. A guy leans toward Lyra and blurts, "Isn't she standing way too close to him?" Lyra slips her hands around his arm and shoves right up against him. Ryu remembers Lur never stuck close to him in the forest, and she snaps back with the truth. She couldn't act like that around her relatives. She admits she's been dying to flirt with a guy like that for ages. Ryo studies the girl for a few tense minutes, then softly brushes her head, and just can't help wondering who spoiled her rotten. The boy steps onto untouched ground, and right in front of him, a towering wall shoots up like a warning, massive enough to steal his breath. They've finally made it to the place. The girl marched ahead and begged him to hurry up, but the boy shouted for her to stop, because he needed her to turn into a she-wolf. Lur presses for answers. Why did this guy need such a plan? Then Ryu flashes the card and tells her the girl never even had it. The card has to be shown to everyone right at the entrance, because the liar gets spotted instantly if his owner shows up in human form. But if he arrives as a wolf, everyone shrugs him off as just another animal, and no one bothers to ask for the card. The girl snapped into Fenrir in seconds, and she was totally cool with wearing that form again. The boy let out a huge sigh of relief that Lur didn't raise a single objection, and then they sprinted off to keep going. The boy hung back behind him and blurted, "Is this really the line to get into the city?" The whole crew whips around and checks Ray's words. Turns out the guy is blonde, with freckles splashed across his face. He then leans in and asks Ray if it's his first time here. Rue nods and says he's down. He wants to sell monster materials here and pick up some fresh new clothes. And the guy grins, saying this city is exactly Rue's kind of place, packed with masters who do their craft like pros. Suddenly, the guards shouted for a new guy to step in. "Go on, keep going, then turn back." He flashed a quick goodbye, bowed low, and said his name was Mac. And yeah, Mac was a merchant, which meant he just might run into Ryu again someday. Ryu answers his greeting with a huge grin, saying how thrilled he is to finally meet him. Then it flips to the other guy's turn. A knight perched in a tiny window leans forward and demands what brings Ryu to the city. Ryu shot his card forward and blurted that he only wanted to sell materials so he could finally get new clothes. Then the knight snapped, asking whether he was registered with the local merchants' guild. Ryu blurts that he's not registered with the guild because he was thinking of selling materials to the adventurers' guild, so the guard clocks the whole story and, just to be safe, demands to see exactly what the guy brought. Ryu nods along and spreads his stuff right in front of the guard. Then the guy's face lights up with shock, and he barks for Ryu to hold tight for a second. Far off, the young man was hashing out the goods with someone else. Then he came back and thanked you for waiting. Right then, a sharp-dressed man strode up to him and introduced himself as a guild employee. The serious man locks eyes with Ryu and demands a word, and there in the stone room, fireplace blazing, Ryu sits across from him while the man presses his offer, asking if he can buy these skins from Ryu. Ryu's jaw dropped at the request. Then the man leaned in and swore these materials were top tier, the kind you can't find anywhere in the market. The boy didn't even realize how rare and valuable it really was. Still, he figured the smartest move was to show it to the master first. The man spots the boy's confusion and shoots a question. Would he let him buy these materials? Ryu shakes his head, saying he wasn't talking about that at all. He's just on his way to a craftsman he knows. The man leaned in, dying to know which master the boy would bow to, unless it was a secret. Ryu answered that the master he'd just met was now known as Davar Crown, and the guard and the man practically lit up the second they heard that name. A heavy, awkward silence swallowed the room, and the boy was left staring, totally lost, already convinced those weren't just normal people, because in his head it had to be the Davar Crown, a bunch of criminals. Ryu shot the man a question. Is your master really that famous? And the guy immediately started defending himself, claiming a friend had pointed him to this master, even though Ryu had never seen him before. A man with regret written all over his face repeats the boy's words, then leans in and tells him straight, Davar Crown rules this entire country. Ryu's face snaps from calm to shock. No way he thought he'd hear that his master is now a king. And just like that, the two of them keep walking down the road together with lure. Suddenly, the wolf whips its head toward Ryu and asks, straight through his mind, what they'll do next, and Ryu freezes in terror because he totally forgot he and Lear can talk telepathically now. The man snaps back that he can probably get Lyra in front of the king, but it's going to be a nightmare, and first, he urges her to sell the materials. Just like that, they keep rolling down the road. The main character can't stop wondering where the guild went, and then bam, they run into one of their own friends. Turns out it's Max. He's already out there, waving like crazy and greeting them with a big welcome. Ryu pushed up to Mac and demanded to know if that guy really was waiting for them. Turns out he was. And just like that, the acquaintance admitted the same thing. He'd already started to panic because their friends hadn't come back in ages. Ryu rubs the back of his head, shoots the new guy an embarrassed apology, and admits the whole material check took way longer than he ever expected. Ryu peppers Mac with where the guild is, and Mac grins. Yeah, he knows, and instantly asks about Ryu's materials too before pointing them the exact way to go. Turns out they're practically neighbors, same place, same day. Mac tells us the guilds have to keep reporting task completion, so they hustle and pick a spot right near the entrance. The room stretched wide, dominated by a massive counter where the employees slid in their reports, and Mac marched the boy straight up to it. He breaks it down like a mission briefing. Everything here runs on 3 stages, and Ryu's only got one goal: sell the materials, then rush straight to the next stage. The girl behind the counter beams at Ryu and warmly welcomes him. Then she asks him, politely but firmly, to set the materials down so the man can sell the tincture. The boy nods, then realizes it's smarter to sell the drops from weak monsters right now, while he holds onto the top-tier materials for the king. The boy dumps every skin onto the table, and they stack up into a towering mountain right in front of you. Suddenly, the girl bolted, grabbed the boy's attention, and ordered him to wait, while Mac, still standing behind, blurted in shock, "Where did you get all that material?" Everyone nearby gaped in shock. Stuff like this is insanely rare, and the quality was so unreal that some swore the guy had just pulled off a real miracle right in front of them. Ryu started talking his way out of it, claiming it was only the hide from a wild boar, but Met shot back, saying it wasn't that simple. Mac leans in and says this massive boar is a Class A monster, then fires off a stack of wild boar facts that'll make you look at feral in a whole new way. Turns out the main character heard this for the first time, because he'd been living deep in the forest with zero clue about any of it. The girl rockets back to the counter, breathless, and apologizes for keeping the boy waiting, then announces the guild is ready to pay 62 gold coins for those pelts, sending the boy into a stunned thought that this kind of money could last him his whole life. Ryu swears he'll have more than enough money, and the girl bows politely, thanking the boy for landing the deal. Then she scoops up a bag of cash from the counter and slides it right to him, and those bundled coins gleam so hard they practically scream, "We did it." Max can't believe his eyes. He's never seen that much money in one place. Local adventurers were all over Ryu too, praising the deal as pure gold, and a few even started calling him cool. Because let's be real, money like that usually belongs only to aristocrats or the very top-tier adventurers. Ryu finally realizes the monsters he tore down weren't weak at all. They were insanely strong, and then, out of nowhere, Lur begins talking to him straight through his thoughts. She nods and admits those monsters this boy beat were insanely strong. Then she boasts that he actually trained in their forest, so the boy finally settles down, but now he's scratching his head, wondering why she's so damn proud of him. The boy grabs the money bag. Boom, they've got cash, and now they can march straight to the king. The travelers just pray nothing goes wrong before they reach him. A winding road packed with countless steps carried them straight to the king, and when they finally hit the castle, they stared in awe at a towering arched entrance and a stone wall lined with proud columns. The king lounged on his throne when a guard came sprinting in, breathless, warning him there was trouble. So the king snapped, stunned, and demanded answers, and the guard dropped to one knee to deliver the most urgent news imaginable. The guard blurts that a man just hit the city and desperately wants to meet the king. He's dressed like a plain peasant, but he's hauling the skins of rank A monsters. The guard squints at this character like a red flag and blurts, "What do we do next, your majesty?" The king paused for half a breath, then snapped, "Bring him in," because this stranger just might be the key he needed, and he ordered the guards to keep a tight grip and not let him slip away. Rue and Lur finally drop down to rest. Then a woman walks in, hands the boys back their stuff, and tells them she washed everything clean and stitched every hole shut. He grabs his clothes, bows with real sincerity, and thanks the woman. Then he blurts out an apology for having to borrow her shirt. The woman snaps that she can't believe what he's been up to. His clothes are worn to nothing. Then she remembers the first day he showed up and swears he looked like a straight-up beggar. He let out an awkward laugh like it was all some joke, but the truth hits. He can't admit he's out in the forest training with Fenrir. Lur can't stop wondering if they'll make it to the castle today, and the boy nods right back, because the guards swore to them yesterday. Turns out, just yesterday the guards grabbed those guys right at the entrance, and now the whole guild is whispering that they're headed straight for the king. The guy finally steadied his mind, and now he's 100% sure he's going to meet the king. Ryu's already inside the palace, standing right in front of those massive carved doors, framed by a grand arched passage with towering columns, and guards are posted by almost every single one. Suddenly, one of the guards blurts that the king is waiting for the boy, so Ryu strides through the hall, heart pounding, trying to figure out who these guards are and why they've shown up. Ryuji starts to suspect the king truly wants to meet them right now, and boom, two guards swing open the huge doors ahead of him and demand he act with way more respect. The doors swing open in front of you, and blinding light blasts out. Then the boy stumbles into the king's presence, seated high atop a throne on an elevated platform with a few steps that scream, "This is power." The king stared the boy down, and Ryu instantly knew the dwarf wasn't just tough, he was terrifyingly strong. Ryu had trained his senses to read power during monster fights, and this king's strength felt like it could rival the deadliest beasts on the hunt. The boy remembers he has to act more humble. Then he drops to his knees and greets the king with respect, while Ryu steps in and introduces himself as the mentor. The king says he got the news. This guy rolled into town to hawk his wares, then buy clothes for himself. He nods and points at his wares, ready to keep talking. Then the king cuts him off mid-sentence, stares him down, and demands an answer. Did he steal that leather? That question hit the boy like a punch, hard, and he snapped back, refusing it, saying he'd earned the skin hunting fair and square. Ryu couldn't believe it. What had he done wrong for the king to label him a thief? The king paused, thinking. He leans in, takes one look, and blurts that even from here it's obvious. These are top-tier materials. Then he asks if you nabbed them during your hunt in the Great Forest, since he's only a mentor, but the king snaps him down on the spot, warning him not to talk nonsense, because a legendary Fenrir is said to live in that very forest. The boy froze for a second after the king's words. Like, wait, the king doesn't even know grandma. Ryu decides to keep quiet about it for now. The boy shoots out an apology, telling the king he came with a request only because a friend told him to. Now the king can't stop wondering who that mystery person is, so the boy spells it out for him. Ryu says the friend has no name, she's just an ordinary huntress. The king snaps his gaze away, stunned by what the boy just told him, and lures like, "Man, that eagle is being insanely rude," while Ryu insists the wolf needs to chill. Then the boy finally realizes this whole situation feels wildly wrong. Even though the grandmother swore she'd known the king for ages, it looked like he didn't recognize her at all, and then the armed soldiers surrounded them. The king clenched his jaw and decided the boy was just trying to pull the wool over his eyes. Ryu figures he should just ask the king straight up, and the king rakes his beard, nodding yes, then offers to spell out every deal with him and even promises to forge him new equipment. So the boy has to drop every last skin. The king tries to tack on even more demands, but the boy rises to his feet, drops to a firm refusal and says, "I won't stand for that, your majesty." The king's nose wrinkles, he's stunned, because he never saw that coming. He roared that he'd never hand over this skin to the king. Then the king sneered and demanded, so what do you think you're doing? Ryu blurts out that he can't trust the king at all. Then he throws him a farewell and tells him straight up he wants nothing to do with someone like him, even if he's royal, and right after that, a guard lunges in and attacks the boy instantly. So you've finally decided it's not worth telling the king anything. Right then, the grandfather hunched up tight and boom, he snapped and shouted that the boy was a stroke victim. The king barked an order to grab the boy and the liar, and the guards swarmed the travelers with spears in seconds. Iria said she could fix this, but Ryu snapped and wouldn't let her lift a finger, warning her that striking the king would just light everything on fire and make things way worse. The king leans in and asks the boy if he'll fight back, and Ryu shakes his head. There's no way he can beat a force like that. The king grins, knowing the boy chose wisely, then commands, "Take him to prison." The guard yanks the boy inside and shoves him forward. Ryu and Lur end up in a dungeon, and Ryu snaps, rubbing the back of his head, complaining he's been skinned alive, while Lur shoots the boy a reproachful look and tells him he should have resisted. The boy leans in and tells the girl, "If we do this, we'll make a whole pile of enemies, and they'll kick us out of the country. And don't forget, the king could turn on the elder too." That's when Lear finally realizes just how deadly serious this all is. Luckily, the Fang stayed with the boy, so the soldiers didn't spot him and he slipped through. Then a man popped up behind him, and Ryu's fear hit so hard he nearly fainted. The man sitting behind leans in and demands to know why the guy's been thrown in jail, and Ryu's stunned, because he didn't even realize anyone was there, since the guy beside him was so quiet. The man flat out says he wouldn't sell the king the skin, but the dwarf just lets out a heavy sigh, like, that excuse is totally pointless, and Ryu can't help wondering why this guy is even here. The men stare hard and drop just one word, betrayal, and here's what it means. This guy tried to stop the king from hunting monsters in the great forests, because even if every hunter in the kingdom shows up, they still can't bring down Fenrir. Now Ray finally gets the whole truth, and that's exactly why the king wanted his skin so badly. But locking people up for that's crossing the line. Ray blurts it out, calling the king seriously hot-tempered. The kid figures this guy must be some awesome dwarf if he knows the elder. Then the man shuts him down and says it was their king who raised him, and Ryu's jaw drops. Then the gnome lines in and spills the truth. This kid is the king's younger brother, and his name is Gnome. Ryu went speechless the second he heard it. Dwarf had rallied his loyal warriors and snatched the throne, and because he looked almost identical to their king, nobody even blinked at the switch. But when the dwarf heard the plan to attack the great forest, it all clicked in an instant. Ryu demanded where the real king was, and the dwarf snapped back that he's locked away in solitary confinement. While other kings hide in plain sight, the real one is locked behind massive iron doors, and a brutal curse seals that room so he can't slip out. Now the boy finally gets it. The old man wasn't talking about anyone else, he meant his older brother. And I've got to drag my brother out here and spill everything right now. Ryu claims he's got it all figured out, urges Lur to come with him, and then, straight from the heart, thanks her for helping him. The man blurts in shock, asking the main character if he's really trying to escape, because it's impossible. Even a dwarf couldn't shatter these bars, but the boy grins, marches straight up to the grate with Lur, and declares that for them, nothing is out of reach. He lunges with everything he's got and slams Fenrir's bullet into the iron bars, crack, and they splinter into rubble. The dwarf by the wall just stares, stunned, while in front of him an unfamiliar boy stands there, wrapped in a wolf's skin. The man demands, "Who are you?" and Ryu shoots a hand out to the dwarf, dragging him into the help before he can hesitate. Ryu tells him, "I'm your mentor," and points to the wolf beside him like it's family, saying, "That's my friend and assistant." The dwarf gets the whole picture instantly, then nods and accepts the boy's help without a second thought. They stride down the corridor, and all that's left of the iron bars are broken remnants still sitting in place. The boy creeps to the corner, peering out with bated breath, because right by the cursed iron doors, only 2 guards are posted. The gnome leans in and questions whether the boy can actually help their king. Ryu fires back that he's got business with the true king, so he'll absolutely back them up. Ryu tiptoes up and asks the gnome, in a tense whisper, if he actually knows how to fight. The gnome struts around, bragging that he's a warrior. Now he just has to grab a weapon first. The kid bursts out from behind the corner grinning, saying, "Then we go now," while the dwarf stays back to cover them from behind. The guard had just crawled out of sleep when he spotted 2 shapes rocketing straight toward him. Out of nowhere, the guards burst into loud shouting that they couldn't come here, but the guy didn't flinch. He tuned it out and begged Lyra in his head not to touch the guards. Lear had to shut them down without wrecking anything. Seriously, no major damage. And once he got the guy's instructions, he jumped into action. Right then, one of the guards lunged with his spear, and the main character barely dodged. He hurled himself out of the way at the last second. But Ryu clocks it instantly. These guards slog along way slower than Fenrir, and their moves are almost too predictable. He grins, certain he's got the win, then sneaks up from behind and strikes one of the guards before they can react. Out of nowhere, a guard lunged at the wolf and yelled that he'd end it in one swing, only to stare in shock as his sword vanished right out of his hands. Lur had clocked his move instantly and snapped the weapon away before he could land a thing. Ryu closes in on the guard and snaps that he's moving way too slow. Then he kicks him straight out of the way. The guards lie down for good as Arya's yells at the gnome that everything's ready, and the gnome steps in, staring in disbelief, wondering how they pulled it off, because those soldiers aren't exactly pushovers. Ryu leans in and says, "I trained my butt off," and the man immediately fires back, "So what are we doing with these doors?" Ryu raps on the door with a single finger, because he knows she's powerful, but she's also trapped under a curse. They locked her in so she can't break free from the inside, and the spell only tightens on her, not on anyone outside. Ryu grips the elder Fenrir again and hurls the blade with everything he's got, and one brutal swing shatters the cursed door into a million tiny pieces. The king sits by the wall, lifts his head, and demands their names. Ryu steps in, reaches out, and flashes a smile. He's thrilled to finally meet them. The man barges in and introduces himself, name, job, everything, then leans over and asks the gnome straight up, "Wait, are you really King Dongvar of the gnomes?" The gnome nods, confirms it, and can't stop staring like, "So, how did you two end up here?" Ryu grins and says his brother did help him. Then the king drops his head, blushing with shame, and apologizes for that fool of a brother. Ryu sits right beside him and tells him not to bother, because he's got a request for Davar. Ryu steps up and asks the king to forge him equipment. Surprise hits the king hard, and he demands, "Why should I do that?" Ryu says Fenrir most likely pushed him to come here, praising his skill like it was legendary. Suddenly, the king's rage flared, and he snapped that this was impossible, because Fenrir had never once spoken to humans, so he demanded the boy tell him the truth. Then Ryu shot Lear a sharp look and demanded permission to prove himself. He grabbed the elder Fenrir's fang and ordered Lear to shift into a human. The girl burst into her new form and looked just like a human, and the king nearly choked with shock at Fenrir's transformation magic. Then Ryu stepped forward and proudly introduced her as the elder's granddaughter. The kid hands the king a tusk and dares him to look. When the king finally sees it, he realizes the truth, swallows his pride, apologizes for doubting him, and promises to carry out the boy's request. The boy is bursting with joy because the king finally agrees to help, and the king warns him he can't refuse Fenrir's friend. So, as an apology, he asks permission to do something with that fang. Suddenly, the king, acting like some wide-eyed kid, stares straight at the fangs of Fenrir's elders, then declares, "This will be only a legendary weapon, while I forge a real masterpiece." This kind of chance is once in a lifetime, so he won't let anyone else even breathe near that reward. The king drops to his knees and begs for permission to forge a weapon for the boy. The kid's totally thrown off. He never imagined he'd get treated like this at all, but since he knows the old man, he's got no choice. He'll have to let the king forge a weapon for him. The boy grins and says he trusts the king, and the king nods right back, thanking him for that chance. Ryu gets it. He still has to settle that mess with the king's brother, but getting his throne back won't be nearly as easy as it looks. The king steadies the boys because that throne is still his, no doubt. Then he vows to call in people who swear loyalty, so he can expose Dorf's betrayal once and for all. The boy was seconds from leaving, but Ryu's fists tightened and he demanded, "Why won't you overthrow the Lion King?" Like he could already feel someone lining up a punch to answer. Ryu and Lur stride up to the next prison cell, and a crew of dwarves crowds back, watching every second like it's a show. Ryu grips the fang of the old Fenrir, swings a few brutal times, and slices right through the cage's iron bars. Then he shouts at the freed dwarves to run now. Ryu strides up to one of the prisoners and asks, "Are you okay?" The dwarf hesitates, then nods with a shaky, uncertain grin, saying everything's fine. The man whips around and faces the king, firing off one urgent question. "Did we free everyone, and is there anyone else who still needs help?" The king beams and thanks him for saving all his subjects. Ryu's giddy with how everything played out, and now he's ready to smash the Lion King's rule, side by side with his fresh new allies. Suddenly, the king clocked the boy's stubborn refusal, and announced that he doesn't have to face the Lion King at all. The king admits this mess happened because his guard slipped, and then the dwarf turns to Ryu and begs him to let him take it from here. The king tightens his fist against his chest, convinced that, as the older brother, he must step up, talk to the younger one and convince him. Ryu clocked the king's shaky nerves, and that uneasy guilt hiding beneath them, and he nodded along with Mr. Davar before telling him to be extra careful. The king leaned in and told him, "If you and Lur head left, you'll hit a secret passage that spits you out onto the street." Then, once Mr. Davar wrapped up his business, he promised he'd reach Ryu. After the king wrapped up his talk with the boy, he decided to pump up his people, and right on cue, Mr. Devar shot his hand up and shouted for his comrades to put the throne back in the hands of its rightful ruler. You watched the enraged crowd storm away in a blur, and the guy told Lyra to head back to the hotel. Then the girls snapped right along and agreed. The boys march along the path Mr. Davar points out, and one of them suddenly blurts that they've got to turn left. Then Lyra spots something weird out of nowhere. Her ears twitch in every direction, hunting the exact source of the sound, and Lyra leans in like, "Ryu, did you hear anything?" But the boy shakes his head, flat out denying it. Lyra starts to hear it again, the faintest little sound the girl caught just a moment ago, and that voice hits him like deja vu. Ryu was already freaking out and asked the girl if it might have been a monster, but Deer wasn't sure. She still pointed at the exact side where the sound came from. Ryu crept up to the corner, waited just a few beats, then exploded out of hiding, fang of the old Fenrir clenched tight in his hands. Turns out there was a chick sprawled on the ground, too weak to even hold itself up, looking utterly drained and dead tired. The girl can't stop wondering how that chick ended up here, and Arya shrugs, saying it probably just got lost since it looks so painfully weak. Rue thrusts his palm toward the chick to test how it feels. Then the chick snaps its attention toward the side and starts squealing like crazy. Before Rue and Lesker can blink, flaming tongues explode from its beak, blasting through the air and nearly torching them. The boy stared in shock because that chicken was breathing fire, until Lur snapped back, grinning, "Don't act surprised. This isn't just a pet, it's a real monster." The hen keeps squawking like it's refusing to back down, and the flames keep roaring out of its beak. Ryu shoots his hands forward, trying to soothe it, and insists, "I'm not your enemy." The hen let out one last, shaky chirp, and then it collapsed to the ground. "So tell me, have you ever wondered what could have caused that?" In the end, there were no outside injuries to find, just a boy who hoisted the chicken into his arms. Lur then figured it was plain hunger, because when she got hungry herself, she felt that exact same weakness. Ryu dug through his pockets for food, then froze, because they'd already stripped him of everything. Ryuaz tells Lur to grab the chicken and keep searching for a way out of the dungeon, and the man swears that the second they step outside, he'll hunt down something edible for the poor thing right away. The boys finally busted out of the dungeon, and now they're chilling at a table near the hotel, while Lur and Ryu grab food for the chicken, and she happily devours whatever they bring her. Ryu grins and realizes that even though the chicken's small, it'll still feed all three, and Lur immediately goes, "Look, now you're actually healthy." Ryu nods along with the girl, scoops the chicken into his arms, and the boy lunges forward, holding it out so it can flap hard, take off, and fly back home. She doesn't flee, she darts right back to Ryu, lets out one more peep, and then starts rubbing her tiny head against his palm. Lear spots the chicken clinging to the boy, and Rue nods, agreeing with the girl's sharp call. Lur leans in and asks if you're ready to strike a contract with the monster, and the guy snaps back to the girl that he didn't save this creature, just to use it for something like that. Ryu figures if she wants to stay close, I'm good with that. Then he whips around to the chicken and asks, straight up, if she wants to sign a contract with him. Lur clearly hated that remark. She shot him a reproachful look and turned away like, "Yeah, nice try." Then she pinned him with a calm question, "So I'm following you too, right?" And honestly, it's wild to wonder what's really running through her head. The boy wastes zero time and blurts out, "Let's crash at the hotel today, then we hit King Davar's palace tomorrow." Sunlight blazed through the room, flooding everything in gold, and the boy couldn't squeeze out even one more minute of sleep. Ryu wrinkles his nose, baffled. Why is this so hard for him? It feels like something heavy is crushing down on his stomach. Ryu lifts his upper body, rubs his eyes, and thinks, did Leo climb onto the bed? Turns out it was Luris at all. There was this massive bird sprawled across the bed, and that's why Ryu couldn't sleep a wink. The boy stared at the bird, stunned out of his mind. Then it finally clicked, and even after he understood, he still couldn't believe what he was seeing. Reyes let out a scream and bolted awake. Lur. Then the girl, blinking hard, snapped, startled. "Why are you yelling?" Reyes shot a shaky finger at the bird, panicking, and demanded, "Lur, look at it." Lur spots the bird instantly. It's the very chicken they hauled out of the dungeon and tamed yesterday. Then Ryu lines in and demands to know why it's ballooned in size so fast. Lur tells Ray the monster has powered up like crazy, evolving by gulping down magical energy, and Ray can't even wrap his head around how that's possible. Lur pondered once more, rare as lightning striking, because the girl was convinced that this little one was truly special. But before Lear can even finish, bam, loud pounding rattles the door. Turns out the soldiers are here, and the poor bird jolts into pure panic at the sudden noise. The bird sprang upward, snapped its wings wide, and in a blink it started flapping hard, then blasted right out the window. The maid bursts into the room and tells Ryu to answer, since he's already awake. Yet all Ryu and Lear can do is steal one quick look at the trail of birds streaking across the sky. Ryu gets summoned straight to the king, who's already waiting and watching like he's been expecting him all along. Ryu and Lear stride up to the throne, bow, and greet his majesty, and the king breaks into a warm smile, saying he's truly glad to see the boy. Ryu leans in and asks King Davar whether he finally got everything straight with his younger brother. Davar nods, and says it all happened because of Ryu. But the king demanded Ryu talk to one person first, before he even started prepping the gear and forging weapons for this kid. Out of nowhere, the king snapped at the shadow lurking by the throne steps and demanded it speak, then ordered it to call Ryu. Turns out that figure was the king's younger brother, Dorf. He clasped his hands in front of him and stepped up to address Mr. Ryu and Mrs. Liger. The king's younger brother drops to his knees in an instant, bows his head to the boy, and begs him, straight from the heart, for forgiveness. You agree and then you clock it. Dorf is acting like a whole new person. Right after that, Lur slips out from behind the guy and demands, "So why'd you pretend you were a king?" Dorf couldn't hide it anymore. He finally confessed that he'd been secretly jealous of his older brother all along. And honestly, Dorf's brother wasn't just good. He was a world-famous master, the kind everyone in the area bragged about, to the point where the youngest wasn't even trusted to touch the materials. The younger brother steps up and tells everyone right there, straight to their faces, that this arrangement crushed him. The dwarf finally admits it. Someday he'll drag his brother straight into a trap and shove him into a car. Once the younger brother became king, he unleashed the country's full power, so anything the dwarf wanted, he could get. Dwarf said that's when Ryu and Liara finally burst onto the scene, and the king's younger brother didn't even have to ask. Just by glancing at what the boy carried, he immediately knew. Ryu had pulled off a rare, top-tier, A-rated product that you couldn't find anywhere else in the whole country. Dorf admitted that the second he found out the man was mentoring, he instantly realized stealing the materials for reuse would be way easier. But like the Lion King says, the boy flat-out refused to hand over the materials, and that's when the gnome finally got it. Ryu had seen through him, and now he'd blown everything, because his emotions completely betrayed him in that instant. The younger brother dips his head one final time in front of the boy, begging for forgiveness. He finally understands, and then Dorf gets his forgiveness, no strings attached. Suddenly, King Davar himself steps in to back his younger brother's apology, asking for forgiveness sincerely, then begging to hear just one more plea. King Davar, wearing a stern face, demands that Ryu let Dorf ready the gear for the boy, and the younger brother's jaw drops at the king's offer. Before Dorf can even start arguing with him, Ryu cuts them off and stops the whole bickering storm. He demands to know why the king picked him, and King Davar admits it straight up. He can forge the finest weapons with his own hands, but his brother is far better at crafting the gear. The king tightens his fist and declares that this is exactly how they'll pay for their guilt. The king's memories hit like a wave. First, one brother wipes the sweat from his brow, absolutely wrecked by hard work, while the other brother clutches a priceless dagger, studying its shining blade like it's the only thing that matters. He used to do everything shoulder to shoulder with his brother, but bit by bit he pulled away and started handling every task alone, until his brother barely got a chance to step in, and he never even noticed the damage he was doing. When he finally said goodbye, Dorf stared at him with raw, crushing sadness. Right now, the king and his brother stand shoulder to shoulder with Lear and Ryu in the middle of the corridor, and the king can't stop thinking that if he'd made different choices earlier, none of this chaos would have happened. But as the older brother, he just couldn't take it, and Dorf scrambles to convince him that it's not really like that. But the king shuts him down, swears Mr. Ryu is the real deal, and presses, "Can he pull off one of my requests?" Then Lear called him by name, and the moment he understood where this was heading, he shot back that he was pinning everything on the king's younger brother. The king gives you his thanks, but his brother can't wrap his head around why you'd agree, so the gentleman snaps back. He couldn't turn down the help of the country's two best masters. If they forge the finest gear and weapons, then no trouble will stand a chance. The king double-checks with Dorf, asking if he understood everything right, but the younger brother still won't buy it. He presses the elder, demanding to know if he's really okay, because this is the same guy who used to cause nothing but trouble. His older brother leans in and says, "If you really regret what you did, then prove it. Craft the best equipment in the entire world for you." And he never shuts up about being a true master, demanding you prove it with actions, or else he'll call the whole thing a bust. He tells Dorf, "Don't you dare let me down. One slip and my name is toast," then leans in and demands they go full throttle, just like old times, when they tackled everything side by side. The king reaches out his hand, and he grabs it. Right away, his younger brother's eyes brim with tears of pure joy. The gnome deftly lifts his brother's hand and declares, Of course I'll craft the best equipment in this whole country. Ryu's been keeping his eyes on them for a while, then he slips into the convo and lights up, saying he's relieved the brothers finally buried the hatchet. The king shoots him an apology for making him wait, but with the dust finally settled and every problem crushed, it's time to turn the page and move on. After a while they finally reach a small village, and Tia admits they haven't been back in ages. She jokes that if they're here now, a whole crowd will swarm in soon. The guy beside her grins and says, "Of course everyone loves you, you're a heroine." He's desperate to meet Ryu right now, so he grabs the girl and tells her to hurry, because they've been friends for ages, and it's been way too long since they last saw each other. She nods along with Taiga, wishing that guy's doing okay, because they've got a bunch of crucial stuff they need to talk to him about. But the moment they get near the house, their breath catches. It's wrecked, crumbling, and anyone can walk up, peek inside, and see the damage for themselves. Both heroes freeze in shock, because everything was fine the moment they left home. Now they're standing there with no clue what to do next. A guard strides up to them, calls them heroes, and demands why they're here. The girl tries to explain Ryu, but her mind scrambles. She can't even get the words out. She only cares about Ryu, what happened to him, and where he is right now. The man snaps at Tia to calm down and stop panicking too soon. Then he tells the guard Ryu lived here, and begs him to explain what went wrong, insisting that everything was perfectly fine before. The man blurted out that their friend had vanished, and everyone sprang to their feet in total shock, speechless, because the news hit them like a punch. Tia couldn't even wrap her head around how he vanished, and Taiga, right beside her, demanded to know exactly how long he'd been gone. He tells them that 2 months have already slipped by. Then, one night, he heard a thunderous crash, sprinted over, and found the house obliterated, with nothing he could do. The boy fires a question at the guard. "Do you have any idea why I got left behind?" But the guard just shakes his head, because he can't read minds. All the boy ever did was grind every day, pitch in with everyone's livestock, and there's no way anyone could believe he'd end up missing. The guard's face crumples with grief as he tells her that the house search turned up only scattered scraps of fur, and he's sure it wasn't from any ordinary animal. This had to be some monster that dragged him away, and the girl's expression snaps into shock. Tia whips around and strides straight to her horse, announcing she's going to hunt down the main character, while Taiga scrambles to block her, yelling that they've still got a mission to finish. She tells him she'll track you down and won't drop the mission, so the boy can finally breathe, until Taiga points out she doesn't even know where to start. The girl just grins and says it doesn't matter, she'll hunt him down everywhere. She tells you to wait, she'll track him down for sure, and she'll stop at nothing to keep him from dying. Meanwhile, where Ryu is, the second he thinks of Tia, he erupts in a sudden sneeze, and Lur, standing right there, freezes, wondering if he's actually sick. The rescue operation is already in motion. The king's younger brother hammers out weapons in his forge right now, and everyone nearby watches every swing like their lives depend on it. And the moment everyone in the room realizes he still can't melt that material, disappointment hits them like a wave. Ryu steadied his focus, reached a verdict, and started telling him straight up, this stuff won't melt, so he'd better try again. But right on Dorf's face, sadness and disappointment hit hard. He admits he's tried again and again to melt the tusk, and nothing budges. Now it's crystal clear why. This tusk is insanely strong, and melting it is no simple task. The gnome knows for sure, if this really is Fenrir's fang, then only a fire as blazing as the ancient elders can melt it. Ryu can't even wrap his head around whether any flame out there could match Fenrir's. Then the cat-eared girl suddenly starts remembering something. Then he blurts out, "So, what do you think about Heart to Flame?" And the heroine freezes, stunned, before blurting the exact same question again. One brother barges into the talk and goes, "Wait, what city are we even talking about? And is this really about that legendary bird?" The other brother swears he's heard Nazna can kill dragons, but the elder stalls mid-sentence, half sure it's nothing more than some bedtime story. So they really did see her. If anyone brings up a guard, the girl whips around to the boy and asks, sharp and clear, whether he still gets what she's saying. He tells them they snagged a chick in the dungeon, and then he snaps, "Where'd you get it?" only to freeze when he learns it was a guard. The girl explains, "It's your magic," and says the bird shot up insanely fast, way faster than any ordinary monster could ever grow. Only top-tier monsters can pull off something like that, so she's convinced it had to be him. The older brother snaps, "Where are you?" and Ryu scrambles to explain where he is right this second. But Dorf was already gone, flying off like he owned the sky. Then the king figures he's probably still on the mountain behind the castle, and Dorf grills his brother, "You sure? It's been ages since he left." He tells him straight up, there's no other path. Only the guard can forge that blazing, powerful flame strong enough to melt the fangs. The brothers beg Mr. Ryu to launch a search, because they can't leave the castle unguarded, and the guilt is eating them alive. He tells them, "Don't worry, you can count on me." And then, after a little while, a girl and a boy are trapped in the blazing desert, and the main character promised his brothers he'd find him, but tracking Garrett down feels nearly impossible. The boy realized he might have sounded way too confident. Then the girl smiled and admitted he could be right. But when the Guardian felt the main character's mana, he should have swooped straight to him, because he'd remember that energy. So tell me, didn't it cross your mind that the main character might be bait? She tells him to head somewhere else. There are still tons of spots we haven't checked yet, and we're not done searching. The girl snapped her head toward the noise and told him to stop, because Lur could suddenly hear voices coming from the other side. They spin around and spot a tiny chick scrambling to flee, desperate not to get snapped up in the monster's jaws, while the monster barrels after it, teeth set on catching. The heroes finally confirm it. Yep, it's Gerard, but the girl spots the problem at once. His wings are twitching and flapping out of rhythm, and he can't run worth a damn. Ryu admits he's probably hurt and begs Lur to hurry, and she shoots back that she gets it. Then they tear off at full speed to help him. That monster already closed in on the little chick, and it was seconds from striking, until Lur lunged in and stopped it cold. She asks the main character if Garrett's really okay, and Ryu leans in, checks the bird over, and snaps, "I don't see any outside injuries," but that doesn't mean the bird's truly fine. They decide to head back to the castle, and plan the flame they'll need later to melt those fangs. After a while, everyone crowds into the castle, and there on the pillow Garrett lies still. Then slowly, breath by breath, he starts waking up and pulling himself back together. Ray blinked in shock when he realized the bird was right there, way closer than he'd expected. He'd figured the sentinel would soar far off, but Lur suddenly wondered if it didn't even have a family to call home. The main character grilled Lur, asking if she truly believed this was the reason he got left alone in the dungeon, because he just couldn't have some other excuse, right? Lur shot back that he had no place to go home, so he couldn't outrun them for long. Now it all clicks for Ryu. Then the king storms into the room and demands to know how the guard is feeling. He insists he's fine, just worn out, but now Garrett has to shut it down and get some real rest. You can't be sure you'll really help them, because that bird's starting to wake up, and the guy notices it happening right in front of him. He leans in, asks how the guard feels, and claims he can rest a little longer. Then the bird wakes up and stares, shocked that it's suddenly surrounded by so many people. So she bolts straight to Ryu, snatches his shoulder, and blurts something at him in her sharp, bird-like language. The main character leans in and asks, "Are you still scared of people?" Then tells him, "Stop doing that right now," and talks him down, insisting, "You're safe here, nothing's going to hurt you." And then the girl keeps a close eye on them until everything settles. Then he leans in and asks the main character if he wants to sign a contract with Gerard. Ryu freezes, blindsided, and can't figure out why any of this is even necessary. Lur warns them, if they're not close by, that bird could end up in real trouble. When it's crunch time, he needs someone he can trust with his life, so the smart move is to lock it in with a contract. Ryo thinks a contract could work, but he's pushing Goddard to make the call and decide his own move. Ryu leaned in and asked Guard if he wanted to sign a contract with him, because he desperately needed Guard's power. But if he doesn't want it, he can walk away with zero drama. And still he pushes on until he gets the answer, so he asks straight up what he wants. Everyone in the room keeps their eyes glued to the boy and the bird, because that bird is locked in on the main character like it knows exactly what's coming. Garrett flapped his wings and shot into the sky, and the boy stared at him, completely thrown off by what he was seeing. A bird drops onto his shoulder like it's backing his idea, then chirps in its own wild bird tongue like it's celebrating. Ryu can't wrap his head around it, so he asks again, "Are you really sure?" And when the bird chirps back, it seals her decision like a final, unmistakable yes. Lur blurts out how legendary it is that he snagged a deal with that famed bird, because that contract is nearly impossible. Then she thanks her back and fires off. "So what should I call you?" Dorf, standing right there, can't shake the question of whether he truly wants to meet Garrett, and the king shoots back that chances like this are almost unheard of, so he urges them to keep talking in the town square, where the view is absolutely stunning. After a bit, all four, plus Haired, rushed into the square, and Ryu's mind just couldn't wrap around it. Why on earth were there so many people here? Both the guards and the locals have packed this place tight, and someone's screaming the king's name at the top of their lungs, so the hero leans in and asks if this many people showing up is actually normal. The king hurried to apologize to him, because everyone kept staring and his rank made it impossible to slip under the radar, and he definitely didn't want to be stuck in the spotlight any longer. He asks if they should come back another time, but Ryu shoots back that everything's fine. then insists they should wrap it up now, because if they don't, this whole thing will drag on for days. With the bird cupped in his hand, the main character declares that he's naming it and sealing a deal with it right now. The boy tells the legendary bird he's about to kick off a ritual, and from this moment on, they'll be family, no doubt about it. He even begs God to back the plan, and God shoots back a clear signal, fully agreeing with him. Then the main character starts the ritual, and the bird swoops in, closing in on the gun. And Ryu, grinning at the bird, announced that from now on, he was called Korin. Then she simply shut her eyes the moment she heard it. A blazing hurricane erupts where they stood, and it crashes through everything in its path, wiping it all clean. The king can't make sense of what's happening. Ryu is just as lost, because this has never happened to him before, while Lear suddenly spots something twisting in the storm's swirl and yells at the boy to look exactly where she's pointing. Inside the hurricane, an egg suddenly manifested, floating in midair like it was defying the storm, with nothing anywhere near it. The heroes close in, staring around like, is Karin really here? Lear reckons it's probably Garrett transforming, and Ray swears this only happens when a monster is terrifyingly strong. He can't figure out why Karin is built like that, and Lur steps in to tell him, straight up, that evolution is when you gain a whole new form and a surge of power. Then Lur promises that with Riaz's might, Karin will finally evolve. She can't stop wondering what the guard will look like, and she's dead serious about making sure he's greeted the right way. The egg creaks open, the main character blurts that Karin is about to hatch any second, and he thrusts his hands forward like he's ready to catch her, so not a single one slips and falls. A winged girl plunges down, and you rocket forward to catch her. Then you ease her gently onto the ground. He blurts, is everything okay with Karina? Because she showed up out of nowhere, and before he can even finish, Garrett just looks at him and calls him Dad. He can't believe they just called him that, straight up shock, totally unexpected, but Karin keeps going, saying that even after all this time since they last met, he hasn't changed one bit, and he's still as cool as ever. He swore they'd be close like family, but he never guessed she'd take it that seriously. So tell me, why is Korin calling him Dad? Those questions crushed at his peace, because Ryu couldn't wrap his head around why she'd chosen a human body and suddenly called him Dad. Karin answered with a painful truth. She'd been lonely for a long, long time. When she was born, there wasn't a single parent or friend for miles, and all she could do was hunt for someone, anyone. But the second people caught sight of her, they swarmed with attacks, forcing her to spend her entire life sprinting, dodging, and hiding. Now Lur finally gets why she bolted when she heard soldiers closing in. Karin insists she clocked everything right from the start, but that day her dad and sister were the ones backing her up. And yeah, she means you and Lur. It was the first time anyone had ever shown her real kindness, and that's exactly why her heart latched onto them. So she made up her mind to become one of them, a human. Once the heroes get dismissed, Ryu steps up to Karina, pats her head, and tells her he gets it all. Then a voice rips out of the whirlwind, roaring the king's name, demanding to know if everything's okay with Mr. Ryu and ordering the king to answer. The hero insists he's okay, then orders Karin to stamp out the flame, and right away, she obeys without hesitation. Ryu swings his hand to grab their attention, and Dorf spots the brothers marching up one by one. Then the main character steps in and tells them everything went perfectly, while Dorf just can't wrap his head around how huge that win really is, because they straight up kicked off a full-blown storm in here. Once the younger brother finally cools down, the king leans in and demands, "So who's this girl standing beside you?" The brother introduces her, Karin, and then drops the bombshell. She's chosen to become human. Dorf jolts at what he hears when a guard steps up in front of him, but the king doesn't blink at all, because this is exactly what you'd expect from a legendary bird. Ryu asks if they'll be okay with Karin by their side, and he grins, saying, "With that kind of power, we'll steamroll every problem for sure." Then Ryu snapped that it was time to head back to the workshop and get to work, and he urged everyone to calm the city's residents down. On their way back, Karin let a feather slip from her fingers, and it just stayed on the ground, sitting there. A young man snatched it up and studied it in silence, muttering to himself that he had to uncover who this Ryu really was, because the clues were screaming that this wasn't just any ordinary person. A whole month slips by, and Dorf finally grabs the main character to test his brand new invention, while Lur hangs back nearby, watching and waiting for him to put it on. The gnome grins and declares it his masterpiece, leather armor he stitched together by hand. Ryu can't stop grinning and blurts out that this armor is unreal. He still can't believe he actually pulled off something this awesome, and Dorf shoots back that it's all because of the rare materials. And then he drops this wild effect that shuts down any temperature change, so the main character is totally lost, and he blurts out, "Wait, what exactly does that mean? Explain it in detail." He straight up tells him that fire magic and ice magic both bounce off this armor, nothing works. Give Korin the credit for her resistance to fire magic, because the moment her feathers were fused into the material, this effect snapped into place. Ryu beams with sparkles in his eyes, thanking Dorf with all his heart, confident that protection from both cold and heat will come in clutch. The room is empty, just the sword hanging there. Then the king storms in, spots it, and blurts out an apology for keeping them waiting. He tells him, "My sword's already sharpened and ready to strike." The main character admits this job was totally worth the wait, and right as the words land, Dorf blurts out in shock that the sword is forged from Fenrir's fang. But Ryu blurts, "Wait, this was supposed to be a dagger, so why is it razor sharp on only one side?" The king leans in and tells him this sword is something else. He forged it with techniques from the East, because they swear that if you sharpen one side of the blade, it'll cut sharper than ever. The girl who barged in with the king claims she didn't just witness it, she helped forge this weapon too. Right then, Ryu pets her head and praises her like he's cheering her on. He keeps going, and now he says the last step is simple: give this weapon a name. The main character just can't wrap his head around it. Why would a blade need one? The king leans in and declares it's vital to carve the truth into the blade, so everyone can see this sword is his, and only he gets to wield it. You didn't expect that request, and your brain went totally empty, until, out of nowhere, a brilliant idea lit up your mind. He throws out the name Wolf for the sword, and the king nods like it's fate, declaring that the blade will now carry that name. Lear mutters that of course it was predictable, but Ryu just looks lost, like he can't even see what the big deal is. The older brother snaps that smashing stuff is pointless. Real power only shows up in live combat, and the main character nods along, fully on board. Soon the city square swelled with people again around Ryu and his crew, and one voice in the crowd yelled, "Looks like a show's about to kick off." Then the whole mass went still, buzzing with eager anticipation. The main character is stunned to see crowds piling in, and the king hangs his head, admitting they must have heard about him again. The king leaned in and promised, "Don't worry, no way will the townspeople get too close." Ryu nodded like he got it, then slowed his pace on purpose, afraid he'd clip someone in the crowd by mistake. The king threw his hands up and said, "Ready, begin." Everyone leaned in, hanging on every word as the speaker announced that the king's own sword-forged trial was about to begin. Finally, the king orders him to unleash every last drop of magic, right along with that sword, because he wants to see just how lethal it really is. Ryu fires back that he gets it, and now he's standing alone in the square, ready to prove it. Every citizen stares at him, and the main character's heart twists. He's been told to go all out, but he fears his power could crush someone by accident. So instead of raining punches on people, he swings at the sky. He swung the sword. Everyone locked their eyes on the blade, tracking exactly where it would land and which way it would whip next. The blast rips the clouds apart in every direction, and the whole crowd just stares, stunned, and even Ryu himself can't believe what he's seeing. People erupted in cheers, calling it unbelievably insane, shocked they'd ever witnessed something like this, while everyone stared in awe at the main character's jaw-dropping strength. Ryu can't believe what just happened, but Karin insists her dad is the strongest, and as Lur steps in, she grins and says this is exactly what she expected from him. The king strides up to the hero and declares, "This is exactly what you should expect from Fenrir's fang. Magic here hits on a whole different level." The king started to brag that he was perfectly satisfied with everything. Then a sudden voice snapped through the room, shouting for everyone to look up. Everyone snapped their heads up at once, and there it was, a dragon soaring through the sky, closing in faster and faster, and to make it even wilder, someone was actually standing on its back. Ryu snaps into stunned silence, staring as the dragon barrels out of the sky and flies straight at them through the clouds, while a few people are clearly gripping the ride on its back. As the dragon swoops lower, the people riding on its back spring off the moment its feet near the ground. They face off against the main character and his crew, 4 of them total, all rocking the exact same uniform. The guy who's standing there grabs the first word and tells Ryu, "Man, it's been way too long since we last saw each other." But the boy is utterly baffled, scratching his head like, "Where do I know you from?" And just then, boom, Lur lights up the second she recognizes the man, calling him Grandpa without hesitation. Ryu freezes, confused for a few heartbeats. Then it hits him. He's staring at the elder. The man grins and tells him the truth. This time, the main character is finally seeing him, not as a dragon, but as a human. Then the main character whips around, and there they are. His dad, his mom, and Grandma Lyra standing right behind him, crowding his back. But the shock hits hardest because Grandma doesn't look old at all. She looks unreal, like she's still young. She straight up reads his mind and asks, "Ever wonder why I look so young?" And he snaps back that he's never wondered at all, not even once. The king strides up to Mr. Fenrir and shoots, "How are you doing?" and Mr. Fenrir grins back, "No complaints, my health's solid and everything's just fine." But the king just can't wrap his head around it, so the elder shrugs and admits he only showed up to talk to Ryu. He's desperate to get answers, but he refuses to talk about it in front of everyone, so he shoves the conversation off until later, the moment they're finally alone. The main character can't stop wondering what Mr. Fenrir is really trying to dig up from him, and when he finally asks, Mr. Fenrir admits something brutally dangerous just woke up. And the evil dragon personally named him. A monstrous three-headed beast towers over everything, slinging all kinds of magic, so when the elder tried to take it on again, even he couldn't break its power, and the only way forward was to seal the monster away. Ryu pictured the thing in his head and instantly decided it was a true demon, one he refused to face, while Mr. Fenrir admitted the seal had started to weaken lately, so he had already geared up for battle. In the middle of the fight, he's going to need every ally he can get, so he shows up to beg Ryu for help. But the boy can't even wrap his head around it, not even a little, and he's totally clueless about what to do. Ryu steps up to the old man and demands, "Do you really think I can handle that dragon?" The man erupts into loud laughter, boasts that he trained in the Great Forest too, and declares that he's far beyond any ordinary person. Ryu tells the main character to stand taller and trust himself, and he goes, "Since even the old man said it, I'll do it, lure." Then the main character crawls out from behind and promises, "I'll help my grandfather too." Ryu presses the elder for answers. "Where's the dragon right now?" The man smirks and says it's chilling in the Dragon Empire. Because the seal's sitting in a cave near the Imperial Castle, this time everyone steps up, and they fight as one. And he'll spill every detail on the ride to the kingdom, so Ryu's baffled because how is that even possible? Then right behind him, a weird sound rips the air, and when Ryu turns, he sees a massive dragon looming in front of him, and fear hits him like a truck. The dragon admitted this was way too wild. He never in a million years thought Fenrir would turn around and beg a human for help. He leaned in close to the main character and demanded to know if he was a disciple of some elder. And Ryu can't even wrap his head around it. He's talking to the very dragon that wiped the Lur family's past. Mr. Fenrir steps in and decides to introduce him to everyone else. Turns out he's her son-in-law, and that means he's an earthly dragon. The elder's son-in-law grins as he finally meets the main character, and the young man shoots back, "I'm thrilled to meet you too." Ryu's jaw drops when he realizes the legendary monsters aren't just one group, they're one family, and they can even talk like humans. The crowd in the square is clueless, and they refuse to believe the main character can actually talk to the dragon. Fenrir tells everyone his son-in-law will haul them straight to the Dragon Empire, and Ryu admits it feels like a mountain he isn't ready to climb. He's just not sure he can pull it off yet. Then his brothers step in and basically dare him. They're going too, and this kind of adventure, there's no way he's backing out. A little later, they all soar straight to the Dragon Empire, and the elder sits down with them, then leans in and asks the main character how it's going with his new girlfriend. Then he bursts into laughter and reveals, "I'm not just Lear, I'm also Korina." He hypes the guy up, but right after, he leans in and insists he pays even closer attention, so he'll have the stamina to handle both. Dad's always got their back. Then Grandpa shows up, and during their talk, Lur straight up tells him he's not a good person. First, Ryu ripped his daughter away from him, and now he's turning on her too, warning her that everything is about to collapse for good. The girl's mother is smashing him on the head and snapping, "Don't you dare talk nonsense." Then she whips around to the main character and tells him to ignore it, saying her husband has missed him like crazy. Ryu realizes they haven't laid eyes on each other for a whole month. He tells her parents that the girl is absolutely terrified about Karin. They always eat side by side, and yeah, they even share the bath. Lyra swears it's her way of taking care of her little sister. Then Grandpa Lur lanes in and grills Karin. What's going on with her parents, and why don't they worry about her? The girl clutches her older sister's hand and blurts out that she has no parents. She's got Ryu and Lyre instead. Then her sister smiles and says, "Everything's fine." Even though she's still so young, fate has been smiling on her because she's stumbled into genuinely good people who have got her back. And he tells Karin, "If she treats my granddaughter like a little sister, then in our eyes, she's basically our own daughter." At first it feels strange for her, but he urges her to think of them as her own family, and the rest of the crew smiles back, warm and kind, like they've already welcomed her in. Her whole body lights up with joy, her eyes gleam, a warm smile bursts across her face, and she tells him she finally gets it, thanking him like her heart's about to burst. After a few minutes, they're bouncing across the Earth Dragon's back, and he grins, "Hang tight, we'll be there soon." Ryu spun around, soaking in Earth's scenery like it was pure magic. Everything looked unbelievably perfect. He looks out and the whole city sprawls in front of him, so huge it feels unreal, like there's no way this is actually happening to him. He leans in for a closer look and asks, "So this is the Dragon Empire?" The elder answers with certainty, "Yeah, and not just the city, but the whole palace too." Then the dragon slides into the conversation and blurts out that he can't stand the empire. It feels way too small to him, and the main character is left stunned like, how is that even possible? The dragon told Ryu, "Me and the Draconites are best friends," then admitted, "Because we're the same height as humans, we had to build a palace sized for them," and smiled as he added, "Good news, my transformation magic lets me live there in peace," before Ryu shot back. But yeah, it's not exactly easy. After a while, they finally closed in on the gates, and the Earth Dragon ordered them to press forward. Ryu bowed and thanked him. A long-haired boy suddenly pops up in front of him, leans in right to his face and promises, "I'll show you everything around you." And the next thing he knows, this Earth Dragon has turned into a human. They're already at the gates, where the guards stand waiting. Then they greet their master, bow low, and he shoots back his thanks for their service. They lean in and ask if the folks beside him are his friends, and the man nods. "Yeah, that's Fenrir and his family." One guard can't even process it, whispering that if they've got a legendary beast like Fenrir in their corner, victory is basically guaranteed. But the second guard freezes in shock and demands, "Who are you?" while pointing straight at Ryu, so Ryu tells him, "Easy, this is my student." But the guards can't wrap their heads around how their master's student could be human. They start asking, worried sick, if everything's going to be okay, because to them humans are ridiculously weak. Ryu hears that and his mood instantly sours, but he can't really argue back because compared to them, it's not wrong. King Lear snapped with rage and demanded the guards tell him, were they really saying the student trained by their master was weak? Terror hit the guard's face at Lear's ferocity, so he rushed to promise, "No, that's not what we meant at all." Ryu can't stand it. Why would her dad blow up like that? So she jumps to her feet and backs him up, and right away she figures he must have just felt like they were being seen as weak. Lear, rage blazing and determination locked in, got it all in an instant, then shouted that it was finally time to prove just how strong their student really was. The moment they crossed into that territory, Lear's father shot straight to his boss, demanded a call, and basically said, "Ryu can end him in 2 seconds. And Lur, he's standing there completely stunned, not even understanding how he got dragged into this mess or why everyone else keeps steering his life like he has no say. But this boss looks terrifying. Tiny horns jut from his forehead, and right now they're spread out as he deliberately keeps his distance, setting the stage for their duel. Lear's father booms from the crowd that the boy can't afford to lose, while Karin just flashes the main character, a good luck, and that pressure crashes down hard on Ryu, because he never meant to step into any fights in the first place. The Earth Dragon summons them to his side, then offers to lay out the duel rules himself. He asks if they'd be fine with it. One side just stops fighting and straight up loses, and the chief snaps back that he's got no objections, which the main character confirms right in front of him. The chief snarls at Ryu that he may be just an ordinary guy, but mercy is off the table, so he better get ready now. Ryu tightens his grip as the Earth Dragon drops his hand and declares the duel officially underway. The second the starting signal blared, the leader snapped into action, no hesitation, charging straight into the attack. Thanks to his speed, he was already breathing down the enemy's neck, sword cocked and aimed for the kill, until the main character slammed into him and forced him back. And I mean, it wasn't easy at all. He barely managed to fend off that attack. The boss backed off, hunting for the perfect opening, and boom, it showed up almost right away. He didn't waste a breath, and he was suddenly right beside our hero again, sword up and ready to strike. He clocks how brutal things are for the guy, leans in, and demands to know what happened, then asks straight up if he really plans to take on the Black Dragon with powers like that. Ryu can't take that many hits, this is past his limit. His opponent isn't just strong, they're lightning fast too. Ryu has no opening to strike, but he refuses to fold, because if he backs down now, his reputation is gone. He finally gets it, he has to use that sword technique. If he strikes with magic, victory flickers within reach, but he can't burn through his power too soon. He has to restrain himself until the perfect moment. When their swords slam together again, it hit him, now's the moment. He grabs his blade and drags his finger along the razor edge, aiming it straight at the opponent's sword. Then he charges straight in, refusing to wait for magic. He crashes into the wall so violently that it leaves a huge dent behind. Everyone watching the chaos erupts in shock, and even Ryu himself can't believe what just happened. The main character tightens his grip on the blade, because he's still not used to the brutal power of the wolf. The Earth Dragon shot up his hand and called the duel off, declaring Ryu the winner. Then the guards, who'd been glued to the whole fight, sprinted straight to their commander sprawled on the floor. King Lear steps up to the boy and lavishes him with praise, cheering that he's doing great, and Korin beams right beside his father. overjoyed at their victory. Ryu is too locked in on his opponent's condition to think straight, so he whips his head to the Earth Dragon and demands, "Are you okay?" The man shoots back that nothing bad has happened to him, because they both signed up for this duel, and nothing worse is going to hit him later either, and Ryu finally exhales, the tension just draining out of him. The older man closes in, clamps a hand on the boy's shoulder, and tells him straight up that the main character has finally gotten stronger. The Earth Dragon promises he'll swing the gates of the Dragon Empire wide for them, then slams his hands onto the door and starts to open it. But the whole crowd went still, hanging on every breath, because when he swings those gates open, it's with a weight in his soul. And still he pulls it off. Then, right in front of them, the world clicks open to a breathtaking view where the Empire's gorgeous nature stretches out for all to see. Earth's dragon leads the way, and as they pass a house, they spot a man in the window, his face swallowed by shadow, who snaps, "I didn't think the Dragon Army's soldiers could be beaten that easily, it feels unreal." He's practically buzzing with excitement to meet the newcomers just landed, because these guys are nothing but unforgettable personalities. Travelers stride down the main street, and the crowd is packed tight with people watching. Ryu spins around, taking in the breathtaking sight with wide eyes, and the Earth Dragon tells him, "This is the land of dragons. That's why it looks nothing like where humans live." Karin halts in her tracks and scans the store shelf like it's a clue, and Ryu and Lur spot it instantly in Sector R. The girl blurts what happened. Karin freezes. She never thought anyone would follow her, so she quickly lies, saying, "Everything's fine." Lur glanced at the counter and spotted bows laid out, then grabbed one for herself and asked the shopkeeper if she liked them. The Earth Dragon perks up mid-hearing and tells them, "You've still got time before the battle, so go on, wander the city on your own." Then the main character proposes they team up and go shopping together, grabbing everything they've ever wanted. The girls instantly nod in agreement, and pure excitement lights up their faces at the offer. After a beat, the dragon leans in and declares, "First, we've got to meet the Emperor." Every person they brush past is moving non-stop, locked in their own hustle and their own problems. You spot it right away. This place isn't just crawling with dragons. There are tons of different races here. The Earth Dragon at the front calls it out and tells you straight up, yeah, it's real and dragons treat every race well. Turns out dragonites are hybrids, half dragon, half human, and when they evolve, some of them sprout a full-on lizard head. The boy leans in, dying to hear more, then blurts, "So, who is this Dragon Emperor?" The dragon answers cold and certain. The Emperor is the fiercest dragon in the whole empire, and so far beyond him it's not even funny. The kid can't wrap his head around it, stunned that someone could be that strong and that mighty. A land dragon yanks him out of his thoughts and declares, "I'll explain it all the second you see me." Then it snaps, "Come into the hall, we're already here and this conversation is done." Right then, the doors swing open. The main character locks eyes with the Emperor and Empress, both seated on their throne right in front of him. Both of them look welcoming, then Ryu's eyes lock on the second he feels it. Their aura is nothing like the others. One glance and it's obvious. This is the Imperial family. The Earth Dragon bows low and greets the Emperor. The moment both thrones creak open, they step down and stride straight toward the fresh arrivals, now that the travelers have just entered. The Emperor goes right in to greet the earthly dragon, while the Empress can't hide her surprise and blurts that she never thought he'd bring so many allies. Especially if this guy can take down the head of security, she can't help but start looking at him with real respect. But then her expression flips. She cracks a small smile and tells him she's never seen people this strong before, praying for the main character as the Earth Dragon whirls to the boy and demands he answer. But before they can finish talking, the Emperor barges in and demands they hash out tactics with the Fenrir family first. Right on cue, the Empress says the rooms are already ready for the guests. Then the boys stare at the rulers of Dragon Country, stunned. And the elder leans in and asks, "All right, what about the others?" The moment the Emperor hears that question, his expression snaps into something colder. He doesn't answer right away, but he still declares that only they will be taking part in the battle. This news hit Ryu the hardest. He still can't wrap his head around it, because it means it's just them joining the battle. The Emperor sighs, admitting it's all too real. They used to get along with other races, but ever since the hero showed up, they've turned their backs and refused to back them anymore. The elder claims he understands everything. Then the main character just freezes, drowning in shock, trying to process every word and worrying if they'll even be okay, because there aren't many of them left, and in the middle of it all, he remembers the hero. And then he remembers Tia turned into a real heroine, and he thinks, maybe I should ask her for help. But the Earth Dragon shuts him down hard. No help, not a chance. Since she treats every monster like a sworn enemy, she'll even lash out at half-humans. The main character can't wrap his head around it. Tia is slaughtering people at random, and he knows her well enough to know she would never do something like that. The Fenrir family's leader realizes their chances of winning are basically zero in a moment like this, and the emperor breaks down and apologizes. But now Rue snapped back to it. Before their trip, Taiga had warned him about Tia's weird, unsettling behavior. The hero leans in and asks Taiga if it's really true that Tia's been acting weird lately. Taiga nods and admits it's fact. The moment they team up to hunt monsters, Tia's face flips into something unrecognizable, and even Taiga starts trembling with fear. Ryu can't believe what he just heard, because he's dead sure Tia used to be a real crybaby, and Taiga swears the same thing too. But he keeps pressing the main character, demanding to know what might have happened to her, only for the main character to shrug and admit, "I have no clue." Taiga is convinced she's got a heroic spirit hiding inside her, so she acts the way she does. Honestly, that would be amazing if it were true. But Ryu isn't so sure. He suspects something else entirely and can't stop wondering why that girl loathes monsters with her whole heart. Meanwhile, Tia and Taiga are juggling chores while hunting down the main character, and they're completely clueless about what this weird request is really about. Rage boiled in the boy's chest. Fenrir's fangs could forge his weapon, but he needs the Guardian's flame, and he has no idea where to find every last bit. Then it hits him. Those exact words came straight from the king. He swore he could craft a legendary weapon if they brought every material they needed. But the tiger blurts that he's heard the king in this land is an expert blacksmith. Then the guy beside him shrugs and says it makes total sense, because real weapons demand real, top-tier materials. Then Tia begs them to drop this weapon, but the girl lurking behind her snaps back. "So, why did we even come here in the first place?" Priestess Maria declares that Tia is a hero, and she's always one step from disaster. That night, Gran, also fighting on the hero's team, comes to meet her, and so does Maria herself. Gran nods along, insisting Tia needs the best weapons if she's going to survive the danger. Then Tiger blurted the idea first, head straight to the guild. Maybe they could dig up exactly what materials they need, and every single team member immediately nodded in agreement. After a while, they finally stumbled up to the guild, and the second they did, everyone stared at them like they'd just walked in from a nightmare. As soon as Night realizes what's going on, it freezes, utterly baffled by the chaos unfolding around it. The moment anyone brings up Fenrir and Guard, everyone nearby snaps their heads toward them like something's off. Then the locals get cold silent, and when they're asked about them, it's like their tongues vanish. Tia can feel something awful hanging over this country, and right then a stranger in a black cloak strides up to the team, face hidden, asking, "So you really want to dig deeper into Fenrir and the legendary bird, Guard?" The girl shoots, "Who are you?" And he just smirks like he's some big info trader. And he blurts, "Why do you care about Fenrir and Guard?" And the girl snaps back that the king promised them the weapon only if they can snatch Fenrir's fangs and Guard's flame. Grant steps up to the informant and practically dares him. He knows something for sure, so out with it right now. They'll pay any price for the intel. But the trader cuts in. He doesn't want cash at all. He wants a story. About a month ago, a man slid into this country with Fenrir and Garrett, then stepped up to crush the rebellion the king's younger brother had cooked up. So yeah, he's hailed as a hero of his country now, and Tia just can't wrap her head around it, because to her, she's the real hero. The merchant keeps talking and drops a bombshell. There are rumors the hero hates monsters, but this is wild, because he's buddy-buddies with Fenrir and Gerard, and that rumor doesn't line up at all. So now the merchant's convinced the hero will just tear through them, kill Fenrir and Gerard, and move on. If the merchant spills more, their so-called hero could slaughter his own allies from their country, then come back for revenge. Maria presses for answers, so nobody dares to explain the details. The merchant tries to respond, but he won't make it clear. Taiga leans in and demands to know what happened, then why Tia won't say a word, yet she just stands there with her back turned, refusing to answer anything. Then she spun around and declared she'd take this hero down for good, while the girl marched to the exit, thanking the information seller as Tiga lunged to stop her. But the girl snapped and swore she'd wipe every monster off the map. She stormed out of the guild, vowing that once this nightmare was done, Tia would finally track down Ryu. Meanwhile, Ryu lounges at the table with Lur and Karin, slumps forward with exhaustion, and lets out a breath, because it's finally over and he can finally relax. At the meeting, they reached zero decisions, just the Dragon Emperor and the Elder hammering out battle strategy, which left him stuck with nothing to do. Lur proposes a stroll around the palace, and Corin jumps on it right away, so yeah, you don't argue either. But the main character doesn't think it's worth drifting through the palace for nothing. Someone has to be warned first. He cracks the door and steps out, then freezes, because a maid stands right in front of him, and Ryu can't help but stare, since he's already seen this same maid right beside the Empress. She demands to know where he's headed, and the main guy shoots her a look of pure shock, saying he just wanted to wander the palace for a bit, while the maid studies him with sharp, suspicious eyes. But the second she sees them, her face flips into focus, and she tells them to follow her right now, and that thrills Corin to no end, because she's loving every twist in this moment. The heroes push forward, but the boy suddenly feels something off, something he can't quite name, like she's been lurking by the door the whole time, listening in on their conversation while they were inside. After a bit, the magician leads them to the dining hall, the library, and the training room, right where the knights are training at this very moment. Then she ushers them into the imperial garden, and the other three light up at the sheer beauty. Meanwhile, I can't tear my eyes away. Corin gasps that the garden looks breathtaking, and Lur fully, no doubt about it, agrees. Plus the main character can't deny how gorgeous everything is here. Even the maid beams that she's thrilled the guests love it all, because the princess is enjoying every second of it too. Ryu quizzes the maid about which princess she means, but he's totally lost. So the maid tells him she's here, and she matters to their country more than anything, and Ryu snaps back that he gets it, even as he's only focused on one burning question. He jabs a finger at a post where a single strand of hair peeks out, and then he leans in, eyes wide, and demands, "Who's hiding there?" The little girl finally steps out of hiding and blurts out that he noticed her after all. All three of them freeze in total shock, because there's a child standing right in front of them. The girl marched up to the main character and stared him down, and he's so confused he can barely process it. Then he finally blurts out, "Do you need something?" This question throws the girl completely off. She has no clue what to say, so she scrambles for an excuse, but every idea collapses in her hands. Then she spots his sword, and a brilliant plan ignites in her mind. The girl demands it, and Ryu snaps back right away that he can't. Then the whole crowd goes deathly quiet for a beat. The girl gasped when he refused, utterly confused why he'd do something like that, until the main character leaned in and told her, straight up, that these aren't toys meant for kids. Those words set her nerves on fire. She starts tapping her foot hard on the floor and keeps snapping, "I'm not a kid anymore." Ryu spun around, stunned and totally lost, and flicked a blank look at the maid. She instantly got the situation, bowed an apology, and promised to call her parents right now. Guy just stayed calm and said it was fine, then told her he'd wait. Then he drops into a squat right in front of her and blurts that her parents have already taken off. Corin snaps back and asks if she's lost. The girl's face twists, she shakes with fury and screams that they're not allowed to mock her. She snarls that she'll rip the sword from his hands and barrels straight at him with everything she's got. Then he sidesteps with deadly confidence, leaving her with nothing. He's totally lost about what she's doing. Then the girl snaps and starts screaming, demanding he hand over his sword right now. The girl lunges toward the boy to snatch the sword from his hands, but Ryu shuts her down again, then bolts away from her like he's got nowhere to spare. But the main character clocks it instantly. She's moving way too fast for her age, and somehow every move she makes is still painfully predictable. She won't take no for an answer. She strides up to the guy, lays down the demand, and presses him hard for what she wants, but he shuts her down again, insisting he won't do it, then telling Lyra and Corin to finally step in and help. But those girls aren't about to step in and mess with her argument. Lyra claims everything's under control. Corin just tells the main character to hang out with her later, the same way as before, and Ryu finally gets it. He can't count on any help from them. Rage takes over the girl. She starts shaking and blasting screams at the top of her lungs, demanding he finally listen, and the fact that he won't only fuels her fury even more. The girl lets her feelings explode and swings her fists wildly, like she's refusing to hold back for even a second. Ryu stares down a pair of razor-sharp claws ahead, still stunned at how it all went this far. Then the girl snaps that he once enraged her and asks if he wants to say anything before it's over. She drives her hand straight toward his face and screams, "Take this." The boy spots nails barreling straight for his face, but he bolts away at the last second, while the princess slams into a column instead and cracks her head wide open. He backs away from the girl to put some space between them, but she keeps trembling with pure rage, so he can't help but panic, asks if she's okay, and sees her sitting on the ground, shaking badly. But the moment the princess shows back up, he sees the tears and realizes she wasn't laughing at all. Now he freezes because he finally understands the truth. He's the one who caused all of this. She drops into the seat beside her, and the girl on the floor sobbing demands answers. How can she lose when she's way stronger than him? The boy snaps back, telling her to calm down. He says they need a doctor now. And then, from right behind him, a voice blurts out an apology for the delays like it's May already. She marched in with the Empress right behind her, and they kept walking straight toward them. The man's eyes went wide. He could barely believe she was actually here. He scrambled to his feet and rushed up to her, then blurted what she'd forgotten here. Didn't the maid say she'd call her parents? And the Empress drops her gaze to the floor in front of him, begging forgiveness for her daughter's disgraceful behavior. It looks like this man's entire life is collapsing, and he can't wrap his head around how this could possibly be her daughter. So the Empress lifts her gaze with a heartbreaking sigh and confirms, "You understood it all correctly. Yes, that really is her." And the maid drops another bombshell. Her granddaughter is here too, and the main character can't accept it. How in the world could she be her granddaughter? And then he questions the maid. Why didn't she stop the princess the second the mischief started? The woman won't meet his eyes and just shrugs, saying she has no idea how to handle kids. In Rias, his head feels like it's going to explode. He's trying to figure it out. If that girl's mom is the Empress, then who on earth is her father? And right there, bam, he finally clocks it. The girl sitting on the floor in front of him isn't just some random kid, she's the heir to the throne. Riv still can't wrap his head around it. The girl who tried to swipe his sword was actually the princess of the Dragon Empire. An older man strides up and tells Ryu he always ends up right in the middle of everything. Ryu is stunned by how he looks, and the man then greets the maid as Tamed, while she beams back that she's happy to see him too. The Fenrir clan's leader doesn't get what's going on at all, until the elder hears everything and realizes the girl only wants to swipe Ryu's sword. But the girl fires back, insisting she's done nothing wrong, because Ryu keeps dodging her attacks like it's his job. If he'd stayed put, she would have crushed him, no question. Her grandmother can't stomach this kind of shame anymore, so she steps in and tells the girl to calm down. Then he tells her, "You lost," and pushes her to accept it, because it looks like they've got to crank up their daily training from here. The maid dips into a perfect 90-degree bow and keeps blurting out apologies, but Ryu waves her off and tells her she's fine and shouldn't stress, only for Tiamat to still have one last request waiting for him. She blurts out that she needs his help with the princess's training, then right in front of everyone, she lays her hand on the princess's head, and the second those words hit him, he freezes, stunned, because he can't believe he just heard that. He asks if there's someone even stronger, but the maid shuts him down fast, because if that happens, the princess will freak out the moment she sees them. When she stands beside him, the storm in her heart settles into calm, and the girl's parents push in too, begging him to talk with her about all of this, because she'll be the one to inherit the throne, and they're terrified she won't be ready. Ryu says he's in, but panic sparks that he'll be a terrible teacher. Then an elder steps in, grips his shoulder and demands he say yes, because even dragons once bowed to him, and Ryu still has lessons to earn. After a bit, Ryu agrees to help the girl train, then rallies everyone, "Raise your heads." The princess's grandmother breaks into gratitude, but Ryu isn't done. He smirks and says he wants one request in return. He slammed his hand to his chest and demanded that, in return, Tiamat teach him something. She can't figure out why he needs this training at all, but the main character tells her straight. He wants to be sharper for the fight, and her lessons will be exactly what he needs. The maid flashes a sweet smile and tells him she's totally cool with it, and the boy practically bursts with joy as he thanks her with all his heart. Then he whips around to Karin, ready to tell her they can finally rest, but she cuts him off mid-sentence and refuses outright, saying she's not okay with stopping and that she's training too. Ryu can't wrap her head around why she'd do something this risky, but Karin snaps back that she's doing it because she wants to help her dad. She also refuses to stay gone forever. This main character wants to step in, hold her close, and comfort her. Then an elder steps in and declares, "I'll handle the security prep myself," and Karin's jaw drops as she blurts out, "Wait, you mean it's really true?" Ryu asks if everything is going to be okay, and the elder just smiles like it's a no-brainer. If she's willing to ask, how could he possibly say no? The truth is, she wants to get stronger, so he steps up and promises to help her gladly. Then the Fenrir family's boss strides right up to Tiamat and presses his offer to her ear in a hushed whisper. Instantaneously, her eyes narrow to slits. She beams at his offer and tells him they'll start tomorrow, while the elder keeps begging for his life, screaming not to be killed. The guy beside him is totally lost, but one thing hits him clear. This mess is about him too. The very next morning, the maid clocked the main character with one brutal blow, sending him flying. He drops to his knees, but the woman fires back, "Get up," because they're nowhere near done. Ryu whips around at the maid's voice and freezes because she's no maid at all, she's a demon. And just as fast, he remembers the elder is studying with Karin right now, so he can't help picturing Karin sprawled on the floor. T-Mac keeps snapping at him, saying he's getting results, but his movements are bloated and wasteful. Then she tells him to save his energy because he tires out in a blink. Right after that, she gives him a quick hands-on demo to prove it. The maid snaps that those powers still won't cut it against the dragon. Then the boy gets blasted back by the impact. Even then, he refuses to drop, no matter how brutal this gets, because he remembers Kareen and Lur are still fighting too, and he will not abandon them. He vowed to stay on course and forge himself into something stronger, until the maid swept in and launched him off for another flight. After a while, the woman finally calls it, "That's enough for today," and the princess and the main character break into relief, grinning through shaking hands, barely able to stand as their legs threaten to give out. But Tiamat's not done. She snaps, commanding them to slam through another 100 laps around the field, and both of them stare in shock like, "Wait, training isn't over yet." After a bit, you and the princess push into the dining room, but you're running on empty. Training drained you so hard you're wiped out. From today on, the maid lurking behind Lyra and Karin snaps that she'll keep a hawkeye on their diet. She said she won't hear a single objection, and that she'll be back any moment. Karina and Lyra can't miss it. The boys look wrecked. So they get asked, "Are you guys okay?" But neither the main character nor the princess has a clue what to say. They lock eyes, and Ryu blurts that even he can barely stand it, while the girl admits that the guy shocked her with just how long he could keep going. "In just a few days, princess, he's going to smash the guy who's still busy dodging his attacks." Then the girl yanks into an awkward move. Ray snaps instantly, grabs her by the arm, pins her down to the floor, and crushes any chance she had to escape. The main character blurts out that he's exhausted, and the princess fires back, "I can keep going." Lyra and Karen hover on the sidelines, watching the training, and the girl's grandmother leans in to warn her. "You're moving too plain. Before you strike, think through every single move like it matters." Now it's time to hit replay, and the guy S got his ears on the maid's every word. She says he moves like a pro, but he's just too slow to react. Even so, she thinks it could still work out with the princess. But if that enemy's speed spikes hard, everything starts to spiral out of control for them, so you've got to watch their moves closely always. Ryu fumbled as he scratched his head, mumbled that if she kept pushing like this he had no choice, but Tiamat cut him off, grinning, and promised him it was all way simpler than he thought. He has to feel the opponent's mana, where it's rushing, where it's going, and when it's screaming attack or back off. With this skill, he'll read the battlefield like a map, and every enemy strike becomes something he can see coming before it hits. But the boy still couldn't grasp a thing, even after the maid broke it down for him. She let out a heavy sigh and admitted it's brutally hard to explain it all in words. Then she leans in and asks if he ever felt the weight pressing down when he faced off against a real monster. And the guy immediately flashes back to their very first meeting with the king, remembering that chilling aura hanging over everything. She realizes he's remembered that exact feeling, and she grins, says it's perfect, because he's already got an idea brewing. Once he finally clicks with the lesson, she pushes harder, reinforcing the material while she starts unbuttoning her shirt. He can't figure out what she's trying to do, so he lunges in and clamps his hands over her eyes so she won't see anything she shouldn't, until the main character snaps at him to stop. Then he looks up and realizes someone or something is straight up blocking the sun from his view. He yanks his hands away from his face, and there it is, a massive dragon looming ahead, swallowing the sun itself. His princess's grandmother suddenly morphed into a dragon and commanded him, "From now on, you'll only face me in this form," and he couldn't even process what he'd just heard. The woman challenges him to beat her and tells him he can pick any weapon he wants. Ryu learns that Tiamat is jumping into the fight too. Then the girl closes in and tells him the rules. He can't hit her until he survives dodging her grandmother's attacks. Ryu stares at her in total shock, blurting out if that's not downright cruel. Tamed fires back that it's all his fault. He picked her as his mentor, and now he has to live with the fallout. And the elder leans in and tells him, "Real learning starts right now, so you'd better get ready." The maid's wagging her tail like crazy as she blurts out that they're starting. The dragon's tail slammed into him and sent him flying back for several meters. He never saw that attack coming so fast. A dragon-shaped woman stares him down and snaps, "What happened?" Then warns that the dark dragon's attacks are about to get way worse. Yet the main character yanks his sword from beneath his cloak and shoots back, "I already know everything." But then boom, a girl bursts out from behind and begs him not to forget her, and he's so shocked he just stumbles aside. While that's happening, the princess lunges at the grandmother like she's about to finish the fight. She darts around the dragon, throwing it off, while Ryu just stands to the side, frozen with no clue what to do next. And if he tries to close the distance, the girl and her grandmother will come at him instantly, so he has no choice but to keep dodging their blows. Right then, Tiamat spotted Ryu locked in deep thought and frozen in place, and she unleashed a furious yelling at him, telling him you don't think during a fight, demanding if he'd forgotten what they were talking about, and pounding the point home that he needed to feel the mana asterisk. Those words snapped the boy back into focus. Then the maid sweeps the field with dust and warns him straight up, he can't beat his opponent by luck alone. After a while, the guy's running on pure fumes. He's gasping, barely staying upright, and fighting to keep his feet under him while his eyes lock onto his opponent. The dragoness locks eyes on him, wondering if this is truly all he's got. then admits that for a human, the boy's performance has been nothing short of impressive, while she recalls her recent chat with Fenrir. The Fenrir family's head lined in and told the maid, "Maybe Rue is exactly who we've been waiting for." Right now, the woman doesn't feel a thing special about him at all. She even wonders if the old man's proposal was a total mistake. But suddenly, the boy's aura snaps into something new. His face shifts. The elder and the dragon feel a surge of power, and they both realize the hero has just gone through something huge. The head of the Fenrir family only smirks, totally satisfied, while the maid clenches her resolve and decides she has to do something, anything. She taunts Ryu right to his face, asking if that's truly all he can do. The joyful princess storms straight into the fight, thinking this is her perfect moment. Then Tiamat barrels on and asks the main character if she should just kill him. The girl halts, stunned, because she can't make sense of what her grandmother just said. But the dragon rumbles on, warning that even with the boy's current state, the dark dragon will still cut his life short. She can end him fast and painlessly. Tiamat tilted her head, then leaned in over the boy, looming over him like a living nightmare. The maid who turned into a dragon snaps that it's game over for him, and the main character stands right beside her below. The princess stays far from the boy and practically begs her grandmother to stop him. And Ryu can't wrap his head around how everything spiraled like this. He just wanted to catch up with his friends, but the main character can't accept that all his hard work ended up for nothing. A stranger slaps a hand on his shoulder, and just like that, his attitude flips. He snaps that he won't tolerate it, vows to fight till the very end, and refuses to give up that easily. The maid drives her strike into him with full force, smacking him so hard dust explodes. Now there's nothing to see at all, and from that impact a gust blasts through the air, nearly sending the princess tumbling off her feet. The boy spots the dragon's claw, stopping just a few centimeters from his face, and then the truth hits him all at once. For just an instant, thanks to the manner, he caught the direction of the blow, because the dust swallowed everything past his own hand, leaving him no choice but to track it and dodge in time, saving his life. He thinks maybe, just maybe, this time he can finally sense the opponent's mana, and when the maid snaps back into human form, she congratulates him for cracking the secret and feeling it. She's dying to know what he thinks of how a woman plays her part, but one thing keeps her up at night. She's praying the main character doesn't believe she was truly ready to kill him. The boy lets out a huge sigh of relief and says, "Yep, exactly like that." Then Tiamat cuts in and insists, "Don't call it a mere game." Hearing that, the boy just freezes in shock. Then the maid declares that the main character handled it all brilliantly, hands him her congratulations, and tells him to take them, making him blush hard as he thanks the princess's grandmother. Meanwhile, the princess stands a bit off to the side, flinging her hands around as she blurts out how she had no clue about any of this, and she and everyone else will keep training until she finally clears that test too. Grandfather snaps at his granddaughter for being selfish and fickle, but before he can finish, the main character barges in and blurts out whether the princess even skipped the test. The grandma and the granddaughter snap their heads toward him, stunned, because they didn't get a word of what he said, and they just stared, waiting for him to break it down. The boy shoves a finger toward the button on his vest. It's about to pop off any second. He admits the girl really did cross the line, then presses her. "So her job was to seduce me, right?" And the maid, gripping her head with one hand, answers, "Yes, officially, that's exactly what she was hired to do." But the woman blurts out that the princess has already passed, so the girl freezes, can't believe what she's hearing, and her eyes instantly light up with pure joy. She's grinning over her tiny win, and when the main character catches it, he gently pats her head and tells her the princess really did great. Hearing Ryu praise her makes her light up. She laughs, bright and carefree, and says, "Of course I pulled it off, you could have done it too." Lur and Karin huddled just off to the side, eyes locked on the battle, whispering that it was straight up incredible, and since this was a moment worth celebrating, they urged everyone to eat together. Then the main character spotted the girls and burst out their names with pure joy. Tiamat lingers a few steps back, calm as ever, and drinks in their conversation with a pleased smile. And now it's way past midnight. Fenrir, the elder, and Tiamat sit side by side, clinking cups in silence, drinking like nothing's ever gone wrong, and Fenrir can't even wrap his head around the fact that they're sharing the same table again. Their faces are barely in the shadows, and the dim light makes the whole room feel warm and close, like comfort you can lean into. He flashes back to all those past moments when they couldn't even steal one quiet conversation, and then the maid cracks up, grinning that at least they were never bored. The elder lines in and demands to know how her training with the main character is going. The match just nods and tells him everything's fine, saying Ryu's already making serious progress. Then the elder bursts into proud laughter, and admits he never thought the match could ever land a husband for herself. But the woman snaps back that she never even considered teaching anyone, and Fenrir, the head of the family, chimes in that the day will come when the main character wipes them out too. The woman pauses, then says, "In life, everything is possible," but she's still thrilled that the little lady is choosing to reuse. And she's still stuck on one question: can she really hand the princess to Mr. Ryu? When the elder hears that, he practically chokes on his breath. Unbelievable news. He immediately starts brewing coffee. Then he leans in and asks Tiamat straight up, has she been drinking or is she sick? He warns her that dressing a dragon princess up as a human is a terrible idea, and there's no way it can work. She just smiles and tells him it won't be easy, but it's still doable, because once he gets stronger than everyone else, people will finally notice him. But yeah, like he said, Mr. Ryu really is the right guy. The older man lets out a heavy sigh, nods along with the woman, and then drops that a man he knows is tied to all of this. The head of the Fenrir family tightens his brow, then snaps that no ordinary person could ever wield strength like that. But he can't shake one question: why did it end up being Ryu who became that monster? Everyone else tried to steal that power through a contract, and every single one of them died a brutal death. Tiamat's eyes sharpen, and she tells him the choice is still his alone, because nobody on Earth can stop him. If he ever gets wind of the main character, the chaos will explode even harder, because Ryu just unlocked a power nobody has ever truly mastered. The elder leans in and asks if anyone else knows about it, and the woman shakes her head, saying it's probably impossible since the man vanished years ago. Then she can't help staring at the elder, wondering how he ever tracked him down. Fenrir, the head of the family, promises he'll spill every last secret the moment the time's right, because Ryu has a hidden power nobody else even knows exists. The main character keeps pushing his training with Miss Tiamat, and they call for a duel. He barrels in, shouts for her to take his strike, and shoves the maid back, but she refuses to go down. After the battle rages down, Tiamat tells Mr. Ryu that he's gotten way stronger now. Then she turns to the woman and demands, "Is that true?" The woman nods and confirms it. His skills have absolutely jumped up. She can't believe how fast he's growing, so the kid blurts out in pure joy, gaping in astonishment, and asks, "Wait, is that really true?" He brags with full confidence, feeling the rewards of his brutal training already kicking in, and now he's sure he's finally strong enough to strike back at the Dark Dragon. Tiamat says the boy's results have finally jumped, so training is cancelled for tomorrow, and the girl's face lights up with pure joy, while the boy looks crushed, totally confused, and demands to know why it was taken away. She tells him, "You train every single day, and your body is already wrecked, so rest right now will help you more than pushing through another workout." And then she makes one thing crystal clear: recovery is just as important as training. She rushes to the elder, tells him everything, and demands to know why he never spends time with Lur and Korina. Right then, the girl is setting up a duel, eyes locked on by the head of the Fenrir clan, who stands off to the side and watches in silence. The main character buys into the idea instantly and nods along, then it hits him. They've never actually had the chance to stroll the city together, so he pushes, "Let's go explore and hunt down something wild." Next morning, Mr. Rue's bedroom. He's peacefully crashed out in bed, then a sudden, unmistakable feeling hits him. Someone's in the room. In his dream, someone shouted his name and demanded he wake up, yet he had no clue who it was, so with a reluctant groan, he cracked his eyes open and finally saw the caller. When Ryu finally opened his eyes, Liara was right there in front of him, shaking him and begging him to wake up, and he couldn't believe she'd actually come herself to do it. But Lur just won't give him a straight answer. He shoves him forward and blurts that Karin is already waiting, begging them to get dressed right now. He told the girls, "I swear, I'm hanging out with you today," and made them believe it. After a while, they finally settled into the main shopping area. Everyone's lost in their own business, nobody's rushing, and the whole place runs calm and steady, and that's where our heroes are. He asks the girls where they want to go, and Karin pauses to think, while Lear shrugs and admits he doesn't know the city, so he has nothing to suggest. He remembers it was right then, Karin was staring at those ribbons, so he pitches the idea of hitting that shop, and the girl just freezes in disbelief, blurting out, "Wait, is that really true?" While Lur chimes in, "That's a brilliant idea." Ryu whips around and demands, "So, you're in with my plan, right?" Then he slips in the address, calling her princess. The little lady stands calmly beside the boys, plants her hands on her hips, and beams like she just earned every bit of that pride. The girl shoots back, "Of course I'm in," and since they're clueless about the city, she promises to show them everything, so by the end, they'll thank her for it. Ryu never imagined he'd actually walk out with the princess. When he flashed back to those times he'd chat with Tiamat during training, he went completely still, stunned, and blurted out whether the woman was really asking him to take the princess with him. With a stern stare, the girl's grandmother says he got it all right, then reveals she's been invited to a meeting, and since nobody's watching over the princess, she turns to him and asks for his help. After that, the main character leans in and asks about the other servants, only for the woman to shake her head and admit they can't survive the princess's fiery temper. She grabs his courage and tells him everything's going to be fine, and yeah, it's electric. Even if Miss Tiamat insisted otherwise, he'd still barrel straight into danger the second the girl was in trouble. So the princess turns to everyone and shouts, "Come on, follow me." Right then they stride into the jewelry store, and the seller greets them with a big, respectful bow, warm as can be, while the place is empty except for them. The man leaned in and asked if they needed help finding the perfect jewelry, and the girl shot back that her friends were here to buy, so she brought them straight to this place. Karina's eyes light up with pure joy as she stares at the jewels, soaking in every glittering detail, and Lur can't tear his gaze away either. He's blown away by how many pieces are packed into that display. Lion Karen beamed as she admired the jewelry. Then her smile froze when she caught the princess staring straight at the girls. Ryu suddenly asked the girl to team up and admire the dazzling decorations together, and the princess snapped in shock. She whipped around with a smug smile and claimed she was a princess who had it all. Then Ryu grinned and fired back that girls like jewelry. The princess stared at the young man in silence, then leaned in and asked if she could ask him something. Ryu was stunned, but he just kept quiet. Then the princess leans in and demands to know why this young man wants to get stronger. Ryu's stunned, but when it's his turn to talk, not a single word comes out. He says the girl blindsided him with the question, right out of nowhere, and the princess snapped at him to just answer. So he rubbed his cheek, admitted he'd wanted to stand shoulder to shoulder with his friends, and then he gave an awkward little smile. He keeps going, saying both of them got rare combat roles, yet he drew the short end of the stick and got left behind, and that's exactly why he's desperate to get stronger. The princess blurts out that maybe the young man is chasing power since his affairs aren't exactly going great, just like her. Then Ryu suddenly snaps away and starts talking about the mentor. The princess blurts in shock, "Wait, what's all this supposed to mean?" and demands to know if the answer is really nothing more than her mentor. She screams in disbelief, insisting she didn't just lose to some ordinary mentor, and Ryu fires back, shouting that he trained harder than anyone. He swears he only got his power because the leader handed it to him. If he hadn't crossed paths with Lyra, he'd still be stuck as a lonely shepherd, never seeing a single other country, and that's why the princess blurts out in shock, asking all about them. She fired off questions at Ryu, where he'd been, what the people were like, and if it was even worth chilling there, and Ryu finally confessed he'd barely traveled at all, just visiting one country. Ryu tells him that girl is a princess. Then he presses, "Do you have to travel all the time?" The princess shot back a hard no. She straight up told Ryu she'd never once left the empire, and that answer left him stunned. The princess gripped her dress in both hands and snapped that, princess or not, she can't just run off and abandon the country, and it feels like she's trapped inside a cage. Ryu met the girl's eyes and told her he finally got her. Then the princess snapped, furious, and demanded to know what he meant. She shrieked, demanding to know how anyone was supposed to understand this, and then firing back whether that guy was royal too. She couldn't shake the feeling he was treating her like she was too easy to fool. Ryu flashed a gentle smile and told her, "I'm just like the princess." He never stepped beyond his village, learning everything from his friends, and it burned him with envy, because they could roam anywhere they wanted, and every time they came back with souvenirs, his jealousy only exploded higher. He lines in and demands that stunned princess confirm it. Does she truly feel the same? She's completely thrown by the question. Suddenly she shrieked, "It's just like that. Her parents and grandmother have always looked after the princess, but even love has a breaking point, and she's aching to see the world, dreaming of visiting every single country." The girl blurts out that she's dreaming of a brand new place no one's ever touched, and she wants everyone to praise her for it, then adds that she can't wait to meet all kinds of people and taste food she's never had before. She brings it up anyway, a little unsure, like, maybe you can find friends too, because sure she can handle everything by herself, but it's not that simple. Ryu figured she just wanted to be friends with them, until she suddenly called Karina and begged her to check out the new ribbons they'd just picked out. You asked her, "Have you already picked the ribbons?" And he laughed, saying they suited her perfectly. Then Corin turned to the guy and asked, "Tell me, do they really look that cute on her?" Then she stared straight at the princess and demanded to know what she'd been saying to Ryu. Right there, the girl snapped with a flinch at the sudden question. The princess spun around, voice trembling, and whispered that there was absolutely nothing special. Ryu flashed a grin and said the princess is desperate to be friends with them. Then the girl's face crumpled, confusion hit hard and panic burst out of her. The girl shrieked and demanded to know who gave him permission to talk like that, and when Korin heard it, he was totally stunned. The root snapped in shock, "Aren't they friends yet?" And the princess froze, staring like she couldn't believe it. The princess snapped, "So what are you even talking about?" Korin paused, then smiled and said, "Come on, how do I explain it? They eat together and they train together." She lit up and asked, "So we're friends already?" And the princess snapped right back, saying, "No, absolutely not." Karina tells the princess that she, her dad, and her sister are family, but she's still ready to make new friends, and she asks the princess straight up if she'll be her friend, and the princess instantly breaks down in sadness. The princess froze at the girl's question, recoiling like it hit her in the chest, and then she scrambled to explain everything. Right then, Ryu and Lior locked eyes and broke into smiles. Ryu even promised she'd be happy to make friends too. Lior let out a quiet sigh, then admitted she didn't exactly have many either. Korin wore a calm face no matter what, yet that princess, she couldn't hide her nerves. Then the princess burst out with joy, shouted that she was in friends with them, and even gave them permission to call her by her name, no titles needed. Karin beamed and told them, "Then we have to pick a ribbon for a rake too," and the princess blinked in shock, asked, "A ribbon?" Only for her to laugh, "I already have one." She flashed a grin, snatched her hand, and pulled Okadi along, because that was their living, breathing proof of friendship. She fired the question at the girl, and shock hit her like lightning. Do friends really act like this? Oka couldn't believe it, and she clamped her lips shut tight. Oscar shot back with pure excitement, and right then Ryu and Lur were standing nearby, with Lur grinning like they were having the time of their lives, while Ryu said it was awesome they'd clicked and become friends this fast. Suddenly Ryu snapped, "Lur, why didn't you buy anything?" Because they've got money from selling materials, so she couldn't just stay quiet and hold back. He flashes a gorgeous necklace with a sparkling pendant, then asks Lur straight up if she likes it, only for her to snap that the chain feels like a collar, and she's not having it. But the girl shakes her head, admitting she'll still hold her back in battle, and the young man immediately steps in, offering to treat her. Yet at that exact moment, Ryu spins away, eyes snapping sideways in shock. He slips the scarf onto the lyre and grins. "So, how do you like that scarf?" The girl blurts out in disbelief, "Is it really a scarf?" And Ryu grins and says, "If it bugs your neck, just tie it around your arm," then adds with a smile, "It'll look amazing on Lear's black hair." Ryu tells the girl, "If you don't like it, we'll watch something else," and Lur immediately says, "It's all good." Then bam, Lur grins and thanks Ryu with a heartfelt from the bottom of his heart sincerity. After a bit, a bunch of guys burst out of the store, and the seller grins and thanks them for buying. The girls turn to Ray and ask where they're heading next, while Liara can't help wondering if there are any other hot spots. Then the princess smiles and says, "Follow me." Then she grins and insists they're going to love it, right as the princess suddenly halts. Ryu jumps in, asking what just happened, and the princess looks totally stunned. She tilts her gaze to the heavens and spots a massive dragon up in the sky, grinning, and locking eyes straight on the Ruse group. Suddenly, a maid steps out of nowhere in front of Ryu. Ryu clocks her instantly as Lady Tiamat, and he blurts out what happened. Tiamat fixes them with a serious stare and says they've got problems. Lady Tiamat warned that the seal inside the cave of the Dragon of Darkness is cracking, way too fast, so it looks like it'll break free sooner than anyone thought, and you went pale, asking what it all means. Tiamat said the early forecasts scream that a breakthrough hits today, so everyone needs to be ready. Ryu's jaw dropped, panic rising as he blurted, "Is it really gonna happen today?" Then everything went quiet. Someone leaned in and asked if it was really about to begin. You frowned, because it felt way too sudden, but honestly there wasn't any other choice. He faces Ms. Tiamat and blurts out, "Can I take a look at the seal?" She nods on the spot, and the girl grins. "Yeah, that's exactly what I was hunting for." She tells them, "Let's head back to the castle first," and then, from there, they'll march to the cave together. Right then, a huge dark cave wall split with a sharp crack, and a monster's tail shot across the stone floor in a flash. Then the monster grinned and promised it would be free, soon, and a blazing fire lit up its eyes, brimming with joy as it counted down to getting everything it wanted. A massive dragon tore across the crystal-clear, cloudless sky. Lur's face lit up like the wait was finally over. Korin nodded at once, deadly serious, and Ryu instantly tensed up. He spun toward Lady Tiamat and demanded, "Has that girl already battled the dark dragon?" Tiamat's eyes went wide in shock. Miss Tiamat snapped that she was still too young to fight, but her relatives could, because he was insanely strong. Even Tiamat would sweat against this dark dragon, because this is a threat that can break anyone, and he's not sure he can survive it either. Right then Ryu snapped tense, and Tiamat clocked it instantly. Lady Tiamat cut in, telling him to stop letting pointless thoughts take over his mind. Sure, he's human but weak isn't even in his vocabulary, and in this time he's racked up achievements like crazy. Then she leans in and tells the young man, "If you can't believe in yourself, believe in me." Tiamat leaned in and told the young man, "Trust yourself, because you've got the strength to back it up." Ryu was stunned at first, then flashed a confident nod. Right then, the princess grabbed him by the head and declared she'd try too, refusing to hog all the glory, and Ryu shot back that he didn't want any of it. After a while, they finally reach a huge, pitch-black cave. Inside, a crowd of wizards huddles together, chanting and casting spell after spell to forge a powerful magical seal. Out of nowhere, a man showed up and demanded to know how the wizards were doing, and the wizard turned to him like a king, calling him emperor. Ryu demanded to know who those people were, and Lady Tiamat answered without hesitation. Those were the Empire's sorcerers, keeping the seal held in place with magic so it could last even longer. Suddenly, the man roared that the seal wouldn't last much longer, and another mage snapped back that the dragon would wake up in just a few minutes. The Emperor strode up to the wizards and declared he understood everything. Then the wizards snapped back that now it all rested on them, and boom, a creepy black liquid started seeping between the stones. The next second, the seal splintered into nothing. Everyone froze in pure shock, and even the Emperor couldn't hide what he felt. The mages didn't see it coming either, staring at the shattered seal like it just broke reality itself. The Emperor snapped, ordering everyone to bolt for their lives, because the dragon was seconds from breaking free, and then the whole cave erupted into violent shaking. A strange liquid gushed out of the crack more and more, until it couldn't be ignored. Then someone snapped, "I've been waiting for this day for ages." Lur, Karin, and Ryu stared in shock. Right then, a massive three-headed dragon burst into view in front of them, its hide crawling with strange, shifting patterns. He scanned the crowd and declared, loud and certain, that draconids and fenrirs were standing right among them. The dragon clocked the human standing among them and shot him a sharp question. "Kid, are you really the hero they say you are?" Ryu snapped, "What's that supposed to mean?" Then blurted he wasn't some hero. Yet right then the Emperor barked orders, demanding his men ready for battle and standing guard. The dragon sneered that they were all just annoying little insects to him, that none of them even sparked his interest. Then he snapped and cast a spell. Then he barks an order for everyone to scatter, and boom, a whole crew of magical seals suddenly flickers into existence. The men screamed, demanding to know what was going on, and they were already about to bolt, until the whole pack of draconites in Fenrir just vanished out of thin air, leaving Ryu stunned, wondering how they all disappeared so fast. The princess and Lear burst into frantic cries for their father and mother. Then Lear snapped his gaze at the dragon and demanded to know where it had dumped them. The monster claimed it just tossed them into another dimension, and now it's aching to throw down with them. And it's all just because they're his team. He throws back a laugh and begs them, "Make me laugh again." At that very moment, a monstrous wolf slammed against the stone wall, trying to force its way through. Yet the opening crawled forward at a painfully slow pace. The man snapped that he couldn't go another step, and Grandma Lur froze him with the truth. This place was forged by dragon magic, while the girl leaned in and said, "And it's terrifyingly powerful." The Emperor snapped that they had to hurry. Lear was alone in there. The man shot the wolf a warning not to rush. They'd trained for this day, over and over, and he was sure they'd pull it off. "Now we've got to figure out how to get out of here." Then out of nowhere, a black snake slithered across the ground, and the blonde girl snapped at the man, "Watch yourself." Suddenly the man snaps out of the way, bam, the snake misses by a hair. He glances down and freezes. Dark snakes swarm everywhere, crawling like shadows, and he calls them the creatures of darkness. They looked up and realized they were hemmed in, stuck with the worst-case scenario, and right then they saw it. This dark dragon didn't waste a second. At that exact moment, a massive black dragon channeled terrifying magic straight from its seal, building power with every breath as it began to unleash a spell. Suddenly, the man erupted in a spray of dark liquid, and the young guy snapped out of the way with razor-sharp timing. The dragon's eyes widened, and it snapped that the boy dodged again. Then it roared at him to stop sprinting and start attacking, but Ryu cut in that there was no need to ask a second time. He came barreling at the dragon and slammed it with a strike. Ryu couldn't believe it, because the dragon didn't even bother to dodge. Then it hit him. The monster had planted itself exactly where his hit would land. Right then, a weird liquid started spilling in behind the kid. Lady Tiamat yelled at Ryu to watch himself, because that enemy could rip dark creatures out of blood. Out of nowhere, a black snake slithered into view, and Miss Tiamat shot Ryu a warning. Don't attack on impulse, or it might end up hurting him. You just hacked down the creature of darkness, the serpent, and then you snapped your tongue and said you finally understood what Miss Tiamat meant. Tiamat realized the dark dragon had gone way beyond strong. Now even a tiny scratch on its hand birthed creatures of darkness, and if it didn't get dropped in one clean blow, everyone was finished as they'd get swarmed and slaughtered. Miss Tiamat stared him down. realizing they couldn't afford to waste his strength right now. The dragon cranked up a magical attack in the next heartbeat and snarled, "How do you like this?" Then he unleashed an insanely powerful spell. Ryu lunged forward, sword flashing at him, and he tried to say they were still together, but the moment was already slipping away before he could finish. Magical seals exploded into existence all around the dark dragon, and Ryu, Alika, Karin, and Lur froze, shock and fear hitting them at once. Several sea lions erupted out of nowhere, smashing into the Ryu's group with a brutal, all-at-once attack. The last one blurted in shock that there was no way they could dodge a strike like that at all. Then he staggered to his feet, fresh from waking up, and somehow still had enough strength to pull off a hit like that. Where did it even come from? The dragon demanded answers from the crowd. What went down? And did they really come here to kill him? But Ryu saw it clear. Do nothing and they die. Strike and the dark spawns even more monsters. He had no clue what to do next. Miss Tiamat whipped around to face Ryu and snapped for him not to rush, then urged him to slow down, think it through, and give it everything he's got. Mrs. Tiamat sat with the thought like it was heavy on her chest. Sure, Ryu and the others have gotten stronger, but they're still green in real fights, and she's praying the Emperor and his team make it back in time. Until then, she has to keep them safe. Then, out of nowhere, Princess Oka crashes in and declares the shadows can be wiped out with a single, decisive blow. She flashes a smile, presses her hand to her chest, and demands, straight up, everyone give it to her. The girl who turns into a dragon snapped that she'd cut him down before he even got the spell off. Then boom, Mrs. Tiamat blared, "Azuka, wait." Suddenly, Aluka's body erupts, and he transforms into a dragon. Ryu whips his eyes forward and spots a tiny, ridiculously cute little dragon right there, and it hits him. This is Aluka's dragon form. Oka sprinted straight at the dragon, yelling that it was all over for him. Then, out of nowhere, Lady Tiamat snapped into a dragon too. Suddenly, the dark dragon grinned and called it ridiculous. Then he flicked a spell, and the oaks froze midair. She realized that the massive black dragon was weaving silent magic. Ryu's breath caught in his throat. He panicked and blared Shotsuki's name. Then boom, a brutal explosion ripped the air apart. Oka wipes the dust from her eyes, and then suddenly her gaze snaps open wide, freezing her in place. She spots Tiamat's body right in front of her, and the girl has collapsed, fainted cold, with absolutely no life left in her. Ryu blares Tiamat's name, and Yuka's body starts shaking with pure terror. Then the dark dragon growls, asking how Tiamat could have truly given herself to save others, and why she'd do something so reckless. He shoved Tiamat back with his tail and snapped, "Get lost." Then Wonka screamed for her grandmother and shot into the sky. Tiamat felt rooted in place, like paralysis magic had her trapped. Then she realizes she has to snap up immediately. The dark dragon leans in and asks, "Do you really think you're heroes?" Then he smirks and drags the truth out, saying the last hero was far better than they'll ever be. He bursts out laughing and dares everyone to crack him up, but Lur, Korin, and Ryu are on edge, because they have no clue what comes next. A monstrous black snake rockets straight at a giant wolf. Then the wolf slams it down, pins it to the earth, and crushes it flat. He warned the other wolves that they were trampling all over them, and even then, there was no end in sight. But the man spirals into a everything's doomed mindset. Late again, always late. He grabs the moment by the throat and yells that you need to hurry up with the guys, because he knows he's got to come up with something fast, before the whole thing slips past the point of no return. He tells Ryu and the rest, "Hang on as tight as you can, don't let go." Right then, the massive black dragon sang praises over his foes and ordered them to swarm him. The girl fought to snap her grandmother back to herself, pleading with her to never quit. Then she kept shouting her name over and over, like her life depended on it. Right then, the dark dragon hissed that if you cut down those obstacles, you'd snap back to your serious self. The main character blurted out Ahak and Tiamat's names on the spot, and the princess spun around just in time to see a magical blast streaking straight for them. Oha slammed into Tiamat, shut her eyes tight, and boom, an explosion ripped the air apart. When the dust finally cleared, Oha opened her eyes to see Ryu and Lefir staring back, with Ryu gripping a knife in front of him, rigid with pure tension. Akka stared at the boy and girl with pure dread. She opened her mouth to speak, but Ryu burst in, shouting at the girl to calm down. Ryu whipped around to Osaka and demanded to know why she'd come here, and Osaka clenched up and confessed it was all her fault. Her grandmother had suffered because of her. Ryu pushed on and warned, if that girl dies, Tiamat will sob, because every single attempt to shield her will have been for nothing. Ryu said it with total confidence. Every scrap of hope now hangs on them alone, because Tiamat is shielding them with every ounce of strength. And Odiko, he was absolutely stunned. Ryu's grinned at the girl and urged her to team up and fight. Then he called Alinka again, only for the girl to stare in shock. Right then Tiamat snapped awake, desperate to speak, but Oka quickly calmed her grandmother, promising she'd stop acting reckless, so there was nothing to fear anymore. Oka swept in beside Lur, Karin, and Ryu and declared, "From here on out, we fight as one." And the moment it landed, everyone went deadly serious. The dark dragon bellowed with laughter and bragged that their pitiful efforts were pure entertainment, then snarled for them to unleash everything they had. Then he thrusts out his hand, covered in countless magical seals, and the Ryu's group barrels straight toward the dark dragon. You dash side to side, weaving through the monster's blows, while Korin stood beside the dragon. Korin watched as the girl squared up, then blasted a brutal stream of energy straight into the dragon's side. The dark dragon reignited the magical seal with a smug smirk, taunted the girl, daring her to torch him with fire, then snapped his fingers and promised he'd crush her first, right as his spell started to build. Right beneath the girl, a magical seal snapped into existence, and then massive dark tentacles exploded out of it. The girl clocked them instantly, and Ryu saw it too, yelling at Karin to stay sharp and be careful. The girl juked out of the way and shot off in another direction, but those dark tentacles still lunged for her like they could smell her fear. Then one of the tentacles lunged for Karin's leg, and Liara snarled and sliced it off with her paw, saving Karin from death. Lur hit the ground and rushed over to ask Korin if she was all right. Korin broke into a happy grin and thanked her sister for pulling her out. Then the black dragon grinned and promised he'd strike alone. Right then, Ryu and Odaka burst forward, charging straight into the monster, while Okusha roared that she wouldn't let the dragon pull that off. In the very next heartbeat, the dark dragon snapped a magical seal into place before itself and swatted Ryu and Oki's attack aside like it was nothing. The dark dragon sneered that the attack was pointless. Then it launched a brutal wide swing, and Ovika and Ryu scrambled to dodge in time. Ryu and Agoka snapped into action, dodging hard and going dead serious, while Ryu froze, totally clueless about what came next, nerves screaming in his chest. Ryu believed Tiamat's warning, never, ever let yourself fall under its spell. Simple strikes won't bring this monster down, because every wound spits out creatures of darkness, and Ryu can't even wrap his head around how anyone's supposed to stop it. Right then, Karin and Lur threw the dark dragon off balance, and before the fight even truly started, Orinka slipped back in. Meanwhile, Ryu remembers his training with TMI, watches Lyra go toe-to-toe with the dark dragon, and locks in on it. There's a real weak spot in that thing. Right then, the black dragon flashed a grin, and a storm of dust whirled around him. So Ryu snapped into focus, stared the dragon down, and blurted, "Wait, what if magical reading could work?" Suddenly, the black dragon's tail ornament flared to life, and Ryu's fear hit like a punch as he stared, wide-eyed, while the dragon snapped its magical seals into action. A glowing magical seal slams into the ground, but Lur twists out of the way at the last second. Then Oka rushes in and drags him straight into a fight. You thought it was impossible, until reality proved you wrong, and then it was game over. He grabs a pen, closes his eyes, and sends his thoughts straight to Lyra and Korin, telling them he's got a question he can't hold back. He lays out his plan, and Lur and Karin are thrown for a loop, demanding to know what the young man is talking about. So Lur leans in and warns them that if they mess this up, it turns deadly, asking if he truly understands the danger. Ryu leans in and swears he's confident that with the two of them, they'll smash through anything, and if trouble hits, they'll step in and keep the guy safe. Lur and Karen stared in shock as Ryu kept going. He told them he trusts them, and now he's ready to put this plan into motion. Then Lur clenches her teeth, snaps that she gets it, and urges them to take action. Karin nods and swears she'll jump in too. Aka promises she'll try too. Then Ryu slams in out of nowhere, grabs the attention, and tells Okuda to listen. Then the dragon leans in and demands to know if they've truly made up their minds, and if they're brave enough to believe he'll let them do it. He snaps his magical seal into place, declares that nothing is what they think it is, and then he launches a spell. Suddenly, Lur snaps to his feet, and there he is, standing right beside the black dragon, which immediately decides Lur's broken the spell. He grins and claims it's a super fast dog, but up in the air, it can't dodge a thing. Then he slaps the magical seal into action and hurls it straight at the liars. Suddenly, a burst of magical water blasts into the air and wraps the dark dragon in its glowing current, smothering it from head to tail. The dragon snapped in surprise and demanded, "Are you really sticking only to the Guardian's fire?" He spun around, eyes widening at what he saw, then grinned and said they were fools, because they were only doing him a favor. He snaps his head up, and boom, Oroka materializes out of nowhere, charging straight into the dark dragon's path. Aka rockets headfirst into the black dragon's body, pitching forward as if gravity just betrayed him. Then he can't wrap his mind around it. Why did the fire with gears fail? He whips his gaze to Odik and thinks, horrified, that only bones should have been left behind. Suddenly, he spots a feather tucked in her mouth, like a shield guarding her, and when Ryu called Oska for help, Astrid seized Karin's handle. With it, Oska takes no damage from fire, and that feather is what keeps him safe, so he has nothing to worry about. Ryu leaned in and told Yuhuzi, the Dark Dragon's magic is insanely powerful, but you just have to stop it from ever unleashing it. He even spilled where his magic comes from, and the Dark Dragon, pacing and tapping the ground, called it fascinating before asking if they were really gearing up to attack him again. The Dark Dragon grins and vows he'll deliver her straight to his grandmother. Then he slams a magical seal into place. Oka just smiles back and snaps that the real fool is the Dark Dragon himself. Right then, a brutal stab of pain slams through the Black Dragon. He whips around, and there it is. Both tails are cut clean off. Right then, Lur sliced through the Dark Dragon's tail with her razor-sharp claws, and Ryu immediately snapped. That tail's where its magic is hiding. The Dark Dragon clocked that this crew had plotted every move from day one, then let out a sharp laugh. Everything suddenly made perfect sense to him, so he smirked and demanded whether they truly thought they could strip his magic away. Suddenly, that severed tail starts to morph, and then countless dark snakes explode out of it. The Dark Dragon points them into position, snarling that his creatures will handle the rest by themselves. He burst out laughing and told us to push forward. Then he ordered Ryu and his crew to hype him up even harder. He orders them to push even harder, right to the brink of collapse, and that's exactly what he's been chasing all along. Suddenly, the Black Dragon snaps out of its focus, whips its head around in shock, and realizes something's off because one of them is gone. Suddenly, it hits him, Ryu, and he realizes the hero isn't here at all right now. He whips his eyes to Lyra as she slashes at the Black Dragon, but the beast jukes out of the way, then narrows its gaze like it knows Ryu is plotting something, and it roars, demanding the hero show up right now. Right then, Ryu bursts in behind the liar, snaps, "I'm here," grins, and his sword starts to glow. The Black Dragon stared at that gleaming sword and snapped to that it was packed with magic, and all this time, he'd been stockpiling magical power, gathering it bit by bit. The Dark Dragon grins and says this is exactly what he's hunted for all this time. Now he's waiting for a real hero. Ryus yells, fires off threats, and then charges straight at the Dark Dragon to strike. The second the young man's sword slams into the dragon's body, boom, an earth-shattering explosion erupts. Suddenly, a savage gust of wind blasts Karin and Lyra, nearly yanking them clean off their feet. Aloka spots a massive blast of air and smoke swirling after the explosion, and she strains to spot the main character, and that dragon somewhere in the chaos. In the next breath, that dust cloud finally tears apart, and there on the ground, a dark figure sprawls there, unconscious yet still breathing. Right then, Oka, Lur, and Karina huddled in close, staring at everything as Ryu fixed his eyes on the Dark Dragon's body, and blurted out like he couldn't believe it, "So we really won." He spots that the Dark Dragon's head won't budge, like it's dead inside, then it clicks in his head. Ryu whips around and sees Lur, Karina, and Oka standing right there. The girls sprinted up to the young man and burst out, laughing, "We won." Then everyone cheered as they swore they'd finally defeated the Dark Dragon. Atako stormed right up to Tiamat and blurted out, "I'll help you now." Right now, you spot something on the Dark Dragon's body. You see its lips twitch, and it shifts like it's about to speak. The Dark Dragon bragged that it was a crushing hit backed by raw power. Then Ryu stepped in and proved he could bring down the Dragon of Darkness, no problem. He leans in and asks what you want as your reward. Then the dragon turns to the young man, declares him a hero, and says his magic knowledge will be more than enough. Ryu can't help but wonder, will that dragon truly stop fighting for good? He steps up to the Dark Dragon and declares, "I didn't fight for any reward." Ryu lines in and demands the dragon spill the truth, what he truly wants, and why he's craving a fight with the hero so badly. A shadowy dragon slumped to the ground, then snarled that all he wanted was one thing, an epic fight against a truly terrifying opponent. He just wanted to prove how strong he really was, so he hunted for the one opponent that deserved the challenge as one challenger after another showed up to compete. But it didn't take long before the Dark Dragon crushed every foe, because he knew only a true hero could stand shoulder to shoulder with him. But the fear spread fast, so even the heroes started backing away, and that's when they decided to throw him behind bars. Lyr, Oka, and Ryu froze in shock. Then the Dark Dragon, scraping together its final strength, finally confessed it wasn't here to attack at all. It was just hunting for someone just as strong as it was. He adds that being born with immense power is a real curse, and the young man is left staring in shock at what the Dark Dragon just told him. Ryu remembered his friends saying they'd gotten way stronger and were heading out on a journey, but since he couldn't fight at all, Ryu stayed behind in the village, watching the excitement from a distance. They wished him luck, then hugged him goodbye and told him to look after the animals. Ryu clenched his fist and stared into the shadows, wondering why the dark dragon was so painfully alone. The black dragon demanded to know what was wrong and ordered the young man to spill what he wanted. Then, when he drew a blank, it offered to end him and asked to be killed right there. But you cut in and tell it you've already made up your mind. He grins, turns to the dragon of darkness, taps his own chest with one finger, and boldly offers, "Let us be friends." Lur, Oka, and Karin froze in shock, and the dark dragon did too. Lur snapped, shouting at Ryu, "What are you carrying?" While the dark dragon demanded the same from the boy, like it couldn't believe what it was seeing. Ryu shot back that he finally understood him better than anyone, and even with all that power, the dark dragon still felt painfully alone. Ryu's mood sank fast, and he pressed his hand to his chest. At that exact moment, Lur and Korin stared at Ryu with hollow eyes. Then the young man stepped up to the dragon and declared, "We beat you." Ryu thrusts his hand toward the fallen dragon, declares that they're equals, and offers the dark creature a chance to be friends. Ryu flashes a grin and challenges the dark dragon to grant his wish, only for the dragon to freeze, stunned and speechless, right as he's about to answer. Then Osaka bursts in, shuts the moment down, and announces she's against it. Oscar said that the black dragon slaughtered countless people and even tore into her grandmother, and she's done. She refuses to befriend a monster like that. If they forgive him, that dark dragon could unleash slaughter all over again. She points at the dark dragon's head lying right there. Ryu told them that once he finished his tale, the truth hit home. There was no way that dark dragon would kill anymore. Oka opened her mouth to speak, but Tiamat cut right in. She stares at herself, declares she's finally crushed the dark dragon, and bam, the magic drains out of her body. Odika erupts in joy and hurls herself into her grandmother's embrace. Ryu told us the monster world is pure survival of the strongest, and in the end, it all comes down to what Ryu chooses to do. You said if that dark dragon turns evil again, we'll beat him, because we already proved we could do it once, so we can do it again. He whips around to Yuka and says maybe she doesn't trust him, then presses her. Does she believe him at all? Yuka visibly tightens up. The girl clutches every memory she has of Ryu, straight to the heart, while Oka turns away and snaps that she'll only say yes this once, and if anything goes wrong, the weight lands on the boy's conscience. Then Ryu lets out a grateful thanks to the girl. Ryu turns to the black dragon and demands to know its answer. Then the dragon erupts in laughter and snaps back that it's a painfully strange wish. He nods and tells the young man to let him heal him. Then, bam, a blinding glow ignites in his hand, and the dragon thrusts its claw straight at the young man. The dark dragon promises this moment will seal their friendship. Then a blazing light rips straight into the boy's body. Ryu nearly choked on his own breath when the dark dragon swore it had tucked a piece of its soul inside him. Then it vanished into thin air, promising they'd meet again soon, leaving Ryu stunned at how the thing just disappeared like it never existed. And right as the strain hit, the boy's body crumpled. He slammed onto the ground, and Lur shot to him without a second to waste. After a while, the boy snaps back to reality. He's sprawled across someone's lap, and the shock hits him. He fainted. Ryu jolts awake and demands where he is. The girl grins and says, "Congrats, you finally woke up, Ryu." Ryu snaps his eyes to YR in shock, and right then the girl flashes him a sweet, confident smile. Ryu blurts out that it's been forever since they last saw each other and asks if she really woke up. Then it hits. The girl actually clawed back her strength, but admits she's healed enough to talk only here, in this world. Ryu looked the young man dead in the eye and told him he was being reckless, and the moment it landed, even Ryu himself was stunned. Bertessi said that during the dragon battle and all the training after, the boy was teetering on death at every turn. His hunger to grow stronger is great, but he's throwing himself into way too many deadly risks. So you finally get what she meant by training, and turns out it was who unleashed the strength in him. He nodded back and promised he'd learned his lesson, then he swore he'd be smarter from here on out. Smiled like she'd just won. Ryu said the dark dragon told him it would carve a piece of its soul and pour it into this. Or she nods like it's obvious and says, "Yep, the egg's really that way," and she jabs her hand straight in its direction. Ryu stared at the egg, demanded whether it was truly the dark dragon's egg, his very soul, and then said in awe that it was unbelievably beautiful. The man flashed a smile and told him right off the bat that the dragon of darkness wasn't evil at all. First, he was a golden dragon who couldn't get enough of learning new things until he mastered forbidden magic and turned into a dragon of darkness. He still looked like an ordinary dragon, but inside, his soul burned stronger than anything. Ryu said he got it all, and chimed in that Ryu was incredibly kind. Then smiled. She claims Ryu might have spared the dark dragon, because Yura is a dragon too. Ryu studies her closely and thinks, I can't just take someone's life like this. and she'll answer, "That's exactly why I like you, kid." Snatches an egg and says they'll circle back to this later. Then she tells you to take a closer look, only for the young man to freeze when a tiny dragon is revealed inside the shell, and calmly explains that the little dragon is rebuilding itself from within. They asked if he'd ever really come to life, or did everyone just nod along and hush the boy, telling him not to sweat it because she'd handle that dragon. Then she leaned in and told Ryu it was time to say goodbye. Ryu hesitated, like he had something he couldn't let go of without protesting. He demanded when could finally get out of the body of this young man, and nearly choked on sheer shock. Ryu told Yura that she'd always been here all alone, and it crushed him to see just how lonely she was. Then Yura shot back, "No, I'm not lonely." Ryu feels snug and totally safe inside, and because she's at ease, she tells the guy, "Don't worry." Then he blurts the question, if he becomes the demon lord, can the girl still escape? Gates goes pale, panic slamming him as he trembles uncontrollably. Or she tells her, "I'll find a way out." Ray lights up with joy, but the girl cuts in and says, "You don't even have to do that." The demon lord was a terrifying monster who ruled the other demons, and she told Ryu he should never end up like her. So she tried to cut the talk short, but Ryu snapped at the girl, begging her to stop. Or she flashes a sad smile and tells you she'll talk to you later. Then the guy yells her name, but she doesn't hear a word. After a while, the young man snaps awake, and there they all are, smiling like everything finally fixed, gathered around Ryu's bed. Mrs. Tiamat beams and blurts out that she's so relieved Ryu is okay. Ryu blurts out, stunned, "Where are we?" And Lur explains that after Ryu collapsed, they ran into their grandma and grandpa. Then the three of them made it back to the castle safe and sound. Ryu finally clicks what happened. He was probably out cold, and he rushes to thank everyone for pulling him through. Tiamat said the boy still hadn't fully bounced back, so he needed to rest, and Lur told him to call her the second he felt sick. He nodded, then urged the girls to rest up too. Ryu got left standing there alone, and the young man felt real relief that Yura was okay, like she just yanked him out of that dream by pure force. But still, he couldn't figure out why he couldn't ever become a master of demons. Right then, Yura swore it all clicked into place, like fate snapping shut. If Ryu really became the Lord of Demons, she could finally break free, but that kind of power would leave him utterly alone, forcing him to pay the cruel price and sacrifice every friend he had. She can't stop thinking about Ryu, and she straight up asks if the main character can survive what's coming. Soon enough, the whole city erupted into a celebration. People tore into food and drinks, danced their hearts out, and sang like the night would never end. They cheered like mad that the dark dragon was finally gone, chugged every last drop, and raised their voices to praise the Emperor of Dragons, and Lord Ryu too. Lur strode up to Ryu, flashed a grin, and said the guy was suddenly super popular. Ryu nodded hard and warned that in the city, people weren't cutting him slack anymore. Ryu, Karin, and Lear finally march into the Emperor's palace, and the Emperor wastes no time thanking them again. Then he asks if he can show his gratitude himself, because, without them, he says there's no way they could have ever beaten the evil dragon. Then the Emperor leaned in and demanded to know what reward she wanted. Ryu froze with fear and blurted that it wasn't worth the trouble. The Emperor grins and tells the young man to quit hiding, because he won't let them leave empty-handed, so they get to ask for whatever they want. But Ryu swears that even if the Emperor orders it, he still doesn't get what he's supposed to ask for, and he's got zero ideas. Ryu demanded to know what he could even ask for, and the Emperor snapped back that he could have anything his heart wanted, treasures, artifacts, or even the keys to living in the palace. Ryu just can't stop thinking. Then Miss Tiamat grins, apologizes for cutting in, and drops a whole new idea about the reward. She pauses, leans in, and demands the guy why he'd never pick her as the reward. Then she grins, and Ryu, Agaka, Lur, and Karin go wide-eyed, begging, "Wait, what do you mean?" Lur blurts out, asking if Mrs. Tiamat truly wants to be his wife. Karin presses Tiamat about whether she's planning to marry Dad, and Oka can't help but wonder what Grandma is actually talking about. You chuckle nervously and insist the Emperor will never go along with this. Then, boom, he and his wife reply with total calm, saying it doesn't bother them one bit. The Emperor leans in and asks Ryu what he's got to say about all this, because a dragon wife sure doesn't sound bad, does it? Ryu freezes in confusion, and his friends just stand there, staring at him like, what now? The young man shoots Mrs. Tiamat a fearful glance and blurts out, "Why are you doing this?" And Tiamat clamps her hand over her mouth, panicking at what he might have just said. Suddenly, the Emperor leaned in and demanded the young man tell him, did he truly hate this proposal? Then the Emperor leans in and demands to know if Ryu can accept Lady Tiamat's terms. Ryu blurts out, shocked, "What do you mean by clause?" and the Emperor nods, saying dragon claws and scales are what forge the strongest weapons and the lightest armor, so everyone's gear gets way better. Or maybe this young man has a different game in mind. He tells the Emperor, everything's fine, then whips around to face Lady Tiamat, and the girl lets out a shaky, nervous laugh. The Emperor promised him, if you do this, you'll get the dragon's seal, my reward. Then he ordered him to get everything ready, and for now they could finally rest, and at that exact moment, Orica let out a breath of pure relief. After a while, Ryu was in full swing, training blade skills with Lur and Karin, drilling sword techniques until every move felt razor-sharp. Lear shoots a concerned, everything okay, and the young man wipes sweat off his forehead like he's barely holding it together. Lear presses that he's still not fully recovered and should rest, but you insist, I'm fine, so he might as well train. Ryu noticed the dark dragon still hadn't recovered, and he was right to be glad. Yura was watching over him. The real truth, the dark dragon has to level up hard, or he'll get left in the dust by the heroes. Right then, Orica surged up to Ryu and pressed a bottle and a towel into his hands, then snapped, joyous, take them. Then the girl blurted out, do you really train that hard? And all she could do was cheer him from the sidelines. The guy thanked her, and she stood there watching closely as Ryu wiped the sweat off his face. Ryu leans in and asks the girl what happened, and she insists everything's fine, then turns around and asks what the boy is going to do once he gets the award. Ryu tells them he's gonna hunt down his friends later, then turns to Alaka and asks what she wants to do next. Suddenly, anxiety slams into Oka's chest, and she blurts out to the guy that she wants to tag along with him and his friends. Ryu blurts out, what's the Emperor gonna say? And Akka shoots back, don't stress, my dad promised I'm allowed to tell the world. If you two come to him together, he'll say yes for sure. Then she leans in and adds, and if I can, I'm going with you. Ryu froze for a second, then it hit him. She'd said she really wanted to travel. Oka felt like a princess and swore she couldn't just vanish from the country, even though she longed to, until Karin suddenly cut through the silence. Karina beams and says she's totally on board, ready to travel with him no problem. Then Lur snaps back that they absolutely can't do that. The room went dead silent. Rue straightened up and said everything was right, and that decisions this important can't be made alone. Ashika just kept quiet. Then Rue gently patted the girl's head and promised, don't worry, we'll go with you together. Ryaz flashes a confident grin, swears he'll win the Emperor's permission no matter what, and leans in to tell the girl to trust him, because he's got this. The girl's grin lit up her face, fists clenched tight, and she leaned in, asking, wait, is it really true? Right when they were about to reach the Emperor, a man lunged in and stopped them cold, shouting that the Emperor demanded their presence. Then he promised to lead them straight to the throne room. After a while, the company finally steps into the throne room. Bam, a massive table sits there, and the Emperor yanks off the white cloth to reveal it's the boy's reward. 5 claws sat on the table, and Rue couldn't believe how many there were. The Emperor leaned in and said, Tiamat told us this. Each claw hits differently, so we brought multiple choices. The land dragon rips with claws like steel. The water dragon lashes with flexible, beautiful talons, and the air dragon strikes with light, razor-sharp claws. The Emperor leaned in and revealed there were special conditions, then pushed the choice into the young man's hands. Pick whichever option you want. Ryu leans over the contract clause and his stomach drops. There are a bunch of different types, and he has zero clue which one he's supposed to pick. Right then he spots the claw and blurts out that he loves it, because the moment he grips it, you can tell it's special and feels insanely comfortable in his hand. The Emperor grins and says, I knew it, you've got an eye like a diamond. He claims this claw is Tiamat's, and Ryu's jaw drops. She demands to know if it's really linked to Tiamat. Then the Emperor grins and says they're insanely lucky, because the student picked the teacher's claw. Tiamat's cheeks burn with embarrassment, and she begs the Emperor to stop. Suddenly, the Emperor snaps his fingers and drops a wild idea, then demands, Ryu, why won't you bring Tiamat with you? Ryu and Tiamat are left completely stunned by what they just heard. Osaka, Karin, and Lur are shaken too, because the Emperor turns to Tiamat and asks if she actually enjoyed training with Ryu, and Tiamat admits she can't, since she has to look after Lady Oke. Right then, Ryu clocks Utsuku. Her eyes are wild with worry as she clutches the hem of her dress in both hands. Ryu's grinned and gave a quick nod to the girl, then her fist tightened like she was about to snap. Out of nowhere, Oska slammed her heel, spun toward her grandmother and father, and declared, if you don't want to, Grandma, then I'm going, Ryu and me, on a trip. She tells him she's been wrestling with this decision for ages, because she's determined to see every wonder of the world with her own eyes, and no matter who tries to shut her down, she refuses to quit. Boka drops to one knee and begs his grandmother, and then his father, for permission to go on the trip. Then, out of nowhere, the whole room erupted into whispers. People insisted that Mrs. Avica is still a kid, and this situation is way too dangerous. The emperor claims he gets why she's hurting, but insists she's still too young and has to wait a few more years. Then Tamed snaps back, loudly objecting and making it clear she won't accept that. Oka charged headfirst into the Dragon of Darkness and fought like a hero, and Tamed just decided, Oka's finally grown up enough. And don't worry, she'll stand right beside you, and he's strong enough that nothing can stop you. She's convinced Uku has to be cut loose, and when her grandmother drops that bombshell, the girl's stunned stiff. Then Tiamat whirls to the boy and declares, I've got one condition. She tells Ryu, you have to protect Oku on this trip, no matter what. If anything happens to her, those scholars will hunt you down, and you won't get away. And trust me, this kind of mess could blow up into an international scandal. She fires a sharp question at the guy, are you ready to take responsibility for Oka? And right then, the grandmother's face turns deadly serious. Oka insists Ryu doesn't have to agree, she can handle herself. But Tiamat shoots back, remembering that in an old interview, Oka once said the exact opposite. She storms back to confirm everything and snaps, if a man can't protect a girl, he has no right to consent. Then right on the spot, he pushes her, demanding she answer his question. Ryu barks the order, then promises he'll tell the truth, right before admitting he can't actually guarantee it. He has no idea what could hit them on the road, so he can't swear Okinawa will stay untouched, because that girl is absolutely terrified. Ryu swore that if anything went wrong, he'd jump in and help her, no matter what, and it wasn't because she was a princess, it was because they were friends. That's why they beg Miss Tiamat to let Aketsu travel with his friends. Then Ryu drops into a deep bow. Ms. Tiamat first scowled, then her smile burst across her face. She fired a question at Ryu, are you really the princess's friend? And Ryu froze for a split second before snapping back and confirming it was absolutely true. Lady Tiamat turns to the emperor and demands to know what he's going to say, then presses him. Will he really let Orica leave? The emperor broke into a smile and told him he couldn't deny the people who helped him. So he nodded, agreed, and let Ohanet set out on the journey. Oki's fist starts to shake, and the girl lights up, giddy that she can finally scream it to the whole world. Ryu whips around to Oha, grinning that he's over the moon, and Oha just nods gratefully. Then Lady Tiamat storms in and cuts them off with a single condition. That's it, she's choosing to go with them. Ryu stares at Mrs. Tiamat in shock, while Oka whips around at the same time to look at his grandmother. Then Tiamat calmly says she never promised she'd stop them from going alone. Tamed warned them that if they stirred trouble in another country, it could spark an international crisis and leave Mr. Ryu paying the price. Tiamat pleaded with the guy to cut her some slack. Lyra shrugged it off like it didn't matter at all, and Karina grinned, saying it was way more interesting that way. Suddenly the whole crowd barrels in and interrogates Apaka. What happened? She grins and blurts that she's just thrilled because she's finally free. Then the emperor bursts out laughing and snaps at her not to say it. The man tells them, before we go, I need a word with you. And the emperor snaps back, I've got a request for you, young man, so listen up. Ryu's jaw drops and he blurts, wait, what's it about? The emperor lines in and demands, can we visit the elven village? In Elforest, spirits swarm everywhere, and just lately, a message from the king of spirits slammed into him. He whirls around and begs Ryu to step in for something huge, and Ryu's eyes go wide as she blurts out, you really need my help. The emperor nods, and when he hears the news of the Dragon of Darkness is spreading like wildfire, he demands, bring me his powers. People have started snatching elves, and he's on a mission. He's demanding we catch every last poacher. They scoop up spirits, trap the elves, and sell them off like servants. He struggles to show up around people, so he turns to the young man and begs for help. Ryu just nods like he gets it, because he's just like him. Ryu figured he'd finally reached out to the very one person he can't stand for help. And sure, he's not against helping at all, he just doesn't know how everyone else will react. Suddenly he heard the girls egg Ryu on, show us your signature move. Lee insisted everyone must feel the same. Oka leaned in and asked, isn't that the best part of traveling? A young guy gets to do whatever he wants. Ryu nodded and swore he'd head straight to the elves' village, and the emperor broke into real joy, because Ryu had finally come to him for help. Ryu knew he had to talk to the king of spirits himself, right now, and the emperor promised the village elder would speak for him, so Ryu nodded, set off toward the elves' village in the south of the great forest, and together they took off on their journey. Emperor Yuk is pushing her to enjoy every step of her journey, and Mom is shouting her luck from the start. Oka grinned, hugged her parents goodbye, and told them they'd already taken off. Then everyone burst into pure joy. Down in the south of the great forest, a pack of Ryuzu pushed through tangled thickets until their feet got yanked by stubborn roots. So Tiamat snapped back that this stretch was packed with massive trees. They're already closing in on the elven village, and after that it'll be smooth sailing. Ryu snaps back that he's got it all, then turns to the guys and tells them, "We're almost there, just a little bit left." He stares at Agonka and she's panting hard, furious and shaken. Then she insists, "I'm fine," even as she struggles to catch her breath. Tiamat snapped at the girl to hurry. If they kept moving like that, they'd never reach their destination. The princess said, "Think of it like training," and demanded she go all in. Tiamat kept pushing the girls forward, but Aoyoko grumbled, and Ryu admitted it was insanely hard. Ryu admitted it was his first time stumbling into this patch of forest, and Miss Tiamat shot back that everything was totally fine, because his spirits had already wrapped a protective barrier around the village, meaning no one could track it down, and Lur confirmed they wouldn't be reaching it either. Guard spirits watch from behind the barrier, tell them who you are, and they'll swing the doors open and let you in. Ryuza grinned, realizing they were already closing in fast, and the next second the boy jerked his head aside, clearly stunned. They spotted a tiny spirit of a young man, and Ryu practically burst with joy, because Korin swore it was the very first time they'd ever seen one. Riwai pressed the spirit, demanding, "Did you really come for us?" Then, boom, the spirit snapped his finger at the path and launched off toward it, flying straight there. Ray couldn't tell if he should chase him, or just stand there stunned, and the worst part was they had no clue where the spirit vanished to so fast. Tiamat swore she understood nothing at all, but they still slipped out of the village. Then, out of nowhere, a young man heard a voice call his name. In the next instant, a stranger lunged at them, and Lur and Ryu felt their courage wobble just a little. Then they spotted a mountain of spiders. Tiamat leaned in and said, "Those aren't just any bugs, they're forest spiders." You couldn't even figure out where all of them were coming from. Then Korin snapped to the young man and ordered him to look away as giant spiders surged in and started attacking everyone. Ryu snapped that he had to step in and help them. They blitzed through the pile of spiders in a heartbeat. A spider lunged at the boy and pure panic hit him. Ryu rushed over and asked if he was okay, and Lur nodded, saying the boy had just fainted, while Tiamat confirmed he wasn't badly hurt at all. Then the spirit shot up and latched onto the young man, and Ryu blurted out that this was the whole reason they'd come here. Right then, bam, a shout rang out from the cart, calling him over and asking if he could lend a hand. In a cage, elves squirmed and begged the young man to let them go. So when Liara and Ryu spotted those elves crammed in a cart, their jaws dropped in shock. After a while, they finally set them free. Then the elves rushed in to thank the boy, but told him they couldn't reward him yet. Ryu just shrugged and said he didn't want anything, introduced himself as Ryu, and explained he'd come on the Spirit King's request. Agaka nodded and said everything was all good. Ryu swore it was this spirit that dragged them here, and the elf girl gasped. Then she spotted it, and when it shushed her with a grin, she instantly went still. After a little time, everyone wakes up in panic, staring around like, what just happened? And the forest spiders are already on them. They bolted to escape, yelling that the elves didn't matter. What mattered was saving themselves, because their lives were everything. And you didn't even see it coming. They ran off without a second thought. Then you spot something lying on the ground. He spots a sword stamped with a killer emblem, and the exact same mark is stamped on every other item too. Tiamat admitted it had never witnessed anything like this, and from the way they move, it's obvious they all belong to the same crew, and that crew is huge. Ryuz insists this organization might even include aristocrats, and there's nothing left for them to learn. Now they've got to rush to the village, track down the Spirit King, and make sure the elves get home safe. After what felt like forever, they shove through the thick forest. Ryu recalls the kidnapped elves, 4 women and 2 kids, and his stomach drops because even the children weren't spared. He can't even bring himself to imagine what kind of nightmare those people had planned for them. We've got to move fast, stop these poachers, and shield the elves and spirits now. The elf swears they're right about to arrive. All they have to do is push through the bushes, and boom, they're home already. Ryu gasped at the sight and blurted out, "This is an elven village." Then a tiny spirit fluttered away, and Ryu waved it off with a goodbye. Right then, an elf sprinted up to them and called the elven girl Helen. He scoops her up in his arms and blurts out that he's just relieved she's okay. The girl groans that it hurts, and the elf snaps back that he'd been terrified the whole time she was kidnapped. "So tell me, do you finally get it? Their family." Helen jabs a finger at the young man and declares, "He's the one who saved us." He bows hard and tells you, "Thank you for saving Helen." Ryu cuts in fast, waving it off. "No need, I just helped when things got rough." Helen calls her grandfather and tells him, "We've come to you at the King of Spirits' request." The man shoots back, asking if that's really true, then leans in and says the young man they're talking about is probably Mr. Ryu. The man clears his throat, asks permission to introduce himself, and announces, "I'm Alrais Solon, the village elder," with his granddaughter Helen right by his side. Ryu's jaw drops. This guy looks like he's barely 20, so why is he suddenly an elder? He can't stop wondering if elves even age, and then I march us straight to the King of Spirits, yelling at everyone to follow me. Soon they creep up to the house and the round table. There are already a few people seated, and just one lonely chair is left open. The elder bows to the Lord and announces that Mr. Ryu is here, just like he was asked, and now they can finally start saving their own. So Ryu presses the question, are they going to lay out the plan together? The elder nods yes, then admits the traitors have already snatched a bunch of their relatives, and they're about to be dragged to the ministry. He's already cooked up a way to fight back, and Ryu presses him hard to find out what he's planning. The elder elf vowed they'd smash into the rich folks' houses, rip his brothers back from their hands, free every elf and spirit, and then punish the cruel ones, period. Ryu's eyes went wide as he demanded, wait, what is all this supposed to mean? Then it hit him. This plan was way too simple. Lur and Tiamat stared, shocked and impressed all at once. Lur leaned in and hissed, what if that old man is just messing with us? Ryu shot back that he didn't believe it for a second. Then Korin cut in, praising the old man's idea, and Valka jumped right in too, backing the girl and pushing them to strike out and crush everyone. They'd already barreled into battle. Then Ruse slammed the brakes, grabbing both by the shoulders and shouting, ordering the girls to stop. Then he shot back, saying it was way too risky. Like, how would they even figure out which houses the elves were in? And why not hit the places where those forbidden items get traded first? The elf warned that the scouts they sent to the kingdom still hadn't come back, and Ryu shot back that if they strike the nobles will hunt revenge, and that revenge will slam straight into the village. The elf suddenly slammed his fist on the table and snapped that they had to think it all through, because time was running out fast. Even now, their relatives are getting crushed by these monsters, enduring every bit of torment, praying they'll be rescued, so they've got no time to waste. The elves immediately rallied behind the guy who'd just spoken, and yeah, you get it now, right? It's hard for them too, and that's why they were rushing like their lives depended on it. They're desperate to save the elves and spirits right now, and Ryu clenches her lips tight, before she tells them she has to think it all through first. If they start swinging at anyone, they'll wipe out elves and burn through precious time, and that's way more damage than any victory is worth, so the elder demanded, then what do we do? Ryu presses a hand to his chest, and promises the elves he'll shoulder it all alone. He'll sneak into the forbidden goods merchants, stalls in disguise as a buyer, and every single elf is going to stare in shock. Ryu told them that once he starts selling, he'd dig up all the info he needs, and maybe even flip it into a purchase on the spot. The elder just asked, but isn't that way too risky? Okaz said this is it. Then he went, and I have no clue how much money that kid is going to need for all of this. Ryu tells them this money doesn't need saving, it needs earning. He's set on cashing in by selling the materials he'll haul back from hunting deep in the Great Forest. After he sold stuff in the Dwarves' Kingdom, he's still got a little stash left, and he swears there are about 60 gold coins sitting somewhere. He whips around to the elder and demands to know if any deadly monsters are lurking here, because he's hunting profit. The elder just laughs and says, of course there are plenty of spiders in these woods. They just showed up in the forest, and in no time they started exploding in number. People have already paid a brutal price for it. Tamed snapped a reminder into the boy's head. Don't you forget the monsters you already crushed, and Ryu nodded fast, promising him everything was going to be all right. He shoots his hand up and declares it, mission time to save the elves, and he'll pull out every stop to make it happen. In the thick of the deep forest, at that exact moment, one spirit shot up to another, and the second one gasped in shock the instant he saw him. The spirit swung around to the young man and demanded to know where he'd vanished to, because it had been hunting for him for ages. It even apologized, saying it just wanted to learn more about him. Then it warned, if you pull that stunt and run off again, you're gonna get yourself in serious trouble. Then he leaned in and asked the spirit, so, how does it feel? The spirit snaps on a cloak and declares, as King of Spirits, he clocked Ryu the second he stepped in. What an insanely interesting kid. Then he grins, fully certain Ryu can help their village. He also says Ryu might be a mentor, but he's fearless, and his heart is nothing but pure. One day, the spiritual king finally crossed paths with someone, and that person's dream was simple and huge. Build a world where people and spirits could live side by side. The man nodded and pushed for a contract to tap into the power of spirits, because that force could genuinely change the game for people in every kind of situation. The spirit demands, so what do you gain from all this? And the man grins, saying he'll lay it all out starting right now. He's furious because everyone's forgotten the spirit's sacred gifts, and now they only see them as boring laborers, when those spirits can change everything. The Spirit King scanned the letter, froze in thought, and realized, shockingly, that he was the only one left who still believed. After a bit, Ryu slaughtered a few spiders, then declared, that should be plenty. The elf shot a question, would anyone really buy these? And Ryu fired back, saying they could be used any way you like, even the threads for making clothes. He tells everyone, all right, now we head for the principality. And just as he finishes, an elder pushes in and calls Ryu by name. The elder demanded the boy help his brothers, because his own daughter was among the kidnapped, and Ryu couldn't believe it, firing back to ask again if the elder's daughter was really there. The elder snapped that it wasn't just a few people. Kids, adults, and even orphans had all been hauled away. But every single one of them matters to him so much, and now the elves bow in front of you and your team, begging you to help them finally get back home. The main character nods in agreement, and the older man digs through his pocket, then thrusts a question at the boy, take this. He shoves a package into his hands, and Ryu's instantly itching to know what's inside the letter. The elder leans in and says it came straight from the King of Spirits, and Ryu is the one who has to deliver it to the prince ruling the principality. Ryu fires back, asking which exact ruler the elder means. Ryu demanded what was inside that letter, and the elder shut him down, just deliver it. Ryu nodded, but admitted he wasn't sure he'd reach the right person in time. Still, he'd try. Then the elder thanked Ryu's group. Ryu and his crew spin around and vanish from the scene, and the elves send them off with the Spirit King's blessing. Later, the girls grilled Ryu about what the Principality of Uruk was like, and Ryu told Karin he didn't know the fine details, but he did say it wasn't nearly as strict as other countries, because they don't even make you show a card when you enter. Miss Tiamat smirked and said this little principality had the spirits, blessing two Oka's eyes widen like, wait, you really kidnapped elves and spirits just to sell them? Tiamat snapped back that it was probably some sneaky plot someone cooked up. First, they've got to hunt down every scrap of info. Then once they sell the guild spiders, send them to talk to people. They roll into the city and Ryu blurts out, so this is really the Principality of Ifruk. Then he squints around, unimpressed. I don't see a thing that makes it special. They step into the guild and the place hits them like a punch, dead silent, totally lifeless. A young guy snaps open a jar of spiders and blurts that he's selling them, then pockets the money they hand him, only to get told to count it. Ray thanked him, but deep down he felt like he'd lived this exact moment before. Then Ray said the money had already landed, and just like that, someone's calling his name. It was Mac. Just then, the young man blurted that it had been forever since they'd seen each other. Mac leaned in and said he'd heard there was a sale of rare materials, so he rushed over to check it out. He even assumed the seller was the same young man, and Ryu went completely stunned. Aurika shot Ryu a question. Do you really know mechanics? And Ryu nodded, telling him they'd actually crossed paths in the land of the dwarves. Max couldn't even wrap his head around it. He'd actually run into Ryu right here. He never thought Ryu would show up during a time like this, with everything so tense. Ryu looked genuinely shocked and shot back. What hard period are you talking about, exactly? Max told him the young man might not realize it yet, but the ruler has just fallen sick, and Ryu nearly froze from the shock. Matt pressed on and told him straight. In this land, whoever dares to make a pact with the King of Spirits takes the throne. But the contract still won't get signed, so now everyone's freaking out. Ryu shot back that he got it, then his mind raced. What did it really mean that the Spirit King knew this current ruler? Could that letter be pointing to a future heir? Max fired the question at you, why are you even here? And the young man froze in shock, then told himself he couldn't admit the truth. He'd come to save the elves. Ryu answered that he tracks missing people for a village when they ask, and Max's jaw dropped. You're really that kind. Ryu lines in and grills the guy, demanding to know if he's heard any whispers about servants in this country. Max says it's nothing, but he's heard whispers from this country. There's a sinister guild trading in illegal goods, and everyone calls them the Black Wolves. The boy suddenly remembered someone tied to this guild, and Ryu's eyes went wide as he blurted out, wait, is that really true? Max warned that the Ryu group's presence would make reaching him almost impossible, and Ryu froze, asking what in the world he meant. Max said traders and banned goods get spotted just by how they look, and people mistake them for regular poor folks because of their appearance, and Ryua said he totally understood. And AC shot back that the moment they get those pricey clothes, they'll haul it to him immediately, because they can't do anything else. Still, you thank them again, one more time. After a while, the boy waved them off and called it a goodbye. Then the girls' worry hit hard, and they rushed to ask, is everything really going to be okay? Karin snapped that it felt uncomfortable, but Aurika grinned and said it fit her perfectly. Then Tiamat leaned in and warned everyone to act like aristocrats, watch every move, and mind every word. The heroes strode out dressed in stunning, jaw-dropping clothes that looked as expensive as they were legendary. Ryu looked them in the eye, said everything was fine, and pushed for a do-over, running it all back one more time. In this family, Ryu is the dad, Tiamat is his wife, and Karin and Olteka are their daughters. He was about to say who Lur would be, but the girl screamed so loud, she snapped the moment, demanding why she had to be treated like an animal. Rue told them it was basically impossible for the girl to tuck away her tail and ears, so pretending to be human was torture. She was furious, and that's when they all agreed. They'd hit the merchants of forbidden things together. Soon the butler stepped up to the whole crew and asked, "So, first-timers?" Ryu nodded and told him he'd heard about the place from his buddy Mac, who said to come straight to this man. The butler gave a calm, confident, "Got it. I understand everything." The man leaned in and asked Ryu which servant he wanted. Then Ryu blinked in shock, because he hadn't even thought about buying anything yet. Suddenly, Lady Tiamat cut them off and ordered him to do his household work right and stay eye-catching. And then she grilled them about what servants they even had. The man demanded they be allowed to show every last thing they had, then snapped an invitation for them to follow him. Ryu turns to Tiamat, and she throws her head back in an instant nod of approval. They thundered down the long stairs. Ryu leaned in and asked what kind of servants they had, and the man just grinned and said they had plenty. A man was drowning in debts he couldn't even scratch off, while a former adventurer stood there acting like it would all be fixed soon. Volka leaned in and hissed, "That's disgusting," and Ryu snapped, "Keep it down, Volka." The group even claimed they've still got half humans left, so Ray snapped, "Are they even available?" He nodded, said you were right on the money, and fired back, "Are you really into this?" Then he leaned in and promised, "If you want, I'll show you everything." The guy asked Ryu what kind of pet he was into, dogs or cats, and before he could answer, Ryu blurted out, "Do you have elves?" The man froze, stunned out of his mind. He halted, leaned in, and quietly asked Tiamat if he'd truly messed up. Then Tiamat said maybe he'd started to sense it, and the man immediately blurted out that he was terribly sorry. He sighed that damn it, there were no elves. Then Rue just stared, shocked by the news. After a while, they finally reached the room, and the man drops a bombshell. Elves are pure gold, and they're sold off only at auction. Rue said he'd got it all figured out, so you won't spot these guys with other traders either, and the man nodded along, then went on to say auctioning those items is way more profitable. The main character couldn't believe it. Normally, money or traders fix everything, right? But at this auction, it's a whole different beast. Whoever has the most cash wins, and elves don't come cheap. They'll set you back a fortune. He knows he has to find out, right now, where they're being held, so Ryu marches up, demands to know where the auction's happening, and the man just groans in apology, refusing to reveal a single detail. Ryu flips out a pouch of gold coins and asks the man if he'll spill what he knows about the elves for a small reward. Then the man's face lights up with pure shock. The man slid over a list of people lined up for auction, and then demanded, through clenched teeth, that nobody tell a soul. Among the crowd, women and children are everywhere, and it hits hard, because lately the Dark Guild has been on a rampage. Ryu heard they just snatched an entire group of elves, and now he realizes they're not rumors. If they're going to free everyone, they'll have to move with razor-sharp care. Suddenly, Ryu spots Vera Ray Solon and jabs his finger at her. Then the man leans in and tells him that their honored client has incredible taste. You get it, only 3 days until she's auctioned off, and the elder begs you to save his daughter. He stares at the girl and realizes they share the same last name, which screams that she's the elder's daughter. TM leans in close and murmurs that the auction clock is almost out, so they've got to rush. Ray nods, agreeing. Rue says a real treasure will show up soon, then snaps. So why are elves worth so much? The man shrugs and admits he has no idea. Then Rue presses a fresh pouch of coins into his hands, and suddenly he's ready to spill every last thing he knows. In the Dark Guild, they whisper that a spirit tracks every elf, and that the elf is just the little extra you get. Ryu can't stop wondering what that bonus really is and what it's supposed to mean. A man comes asking if he knows the ruler is sick right now, and that sparks panic. Everyone scrambles to strike a deal with the spirit, which means they need elves. Spirits are always hovering near the elves, and when the main character heard that, his face lit up like, "Got it, I understand everything." Ryu replayed the elf's words in his head, how their brothers and sisters were still trapped in brutal suffering, and then they begged the young man to help. He stares at the man and realizes the elves are drowning in sorrow now. People have turned into soul hunters, treating the elves like they're nothing but objects. Ryu's fury was off the charts. Korin even noticed and said Dad was furious, while Orica snapped that she could feel the rage burning in her bones. The man leaned in and asked Ryu if he needed anything else, and Ryu shot back, "Nah, I'm good. This is more than enough." He also asked, "Can we find out who did this?" And the man just cringed and apologized, admitting he had no clue who was behind it. Ryu shot the man a quick thank you for the info, told him they had to head out, and promised next time they'd buy something for sure. The man beamed back, thanked them too, and swore he'd be waiting when they came again. After a bit, Lur snapped, "I can't believe elves are getting kidnapped just to grab money." Korin shot back that this life was pure misery. Then Lur whipped around to Ryu and asked, "You okay?" He just shrugged and said, "I'm fine, everything's good." He swore they'd save every last elf, and he couldn't wrap his head around how anyone could treat other people like nothing. Lur and Karen nodded right along with the young man. Ryu snaps that they need more answers, figure out where the captives are being kept, and expose who's pulling the strings behind all of this. Miss Tiamat told the kids to swap outfits, saying what they're wearing makes them impossible to miss, and Rue nodded right along, so they tucked their stuff away right here, ready to stay hidden. Right then, the main character blurts out that they've still got a few more questions to ask. Then he yanks open the pot sitting on the ground and freezes, shocked by what's inside. In the room, a kid fidgeted and nervously laughed as he greeted Ryu. Everyone there went totally speechless with shock. The kid waved and said hi to Ryu, and without a fuss, he grabbed the pot and shut the lid tight. The kid screamed at the boy, demanding what he was doing there, and the boy blurted out an apology, saying he never meant to ruin the peace in the kid's home. The girl snapped that this wasn't her house, and she wasn't some kid, and then she introduced herself, Alice. She's about to turn 19, and she's an informant from Earth. Alice even warned him not to underestimate her, and Ryu just laughed and said she looked like a kid. Ryu then leaned in and told her about the Land of Light, his real home, and Alice's jaw dropped as she demanded, "Wait, are you truly from there?" Miss Tiamat leaned in and demanded to know about the Land of Light, then grilled them. "Tell me straight, does that church really run everything here?" Oka demanded to know about the church, and Ryu shot back, "Yeah, this is where people earn their calling. It's huge, packed with priests." Alice flashed a confident smile and said everything was okay, so she rushed here to back up their hero. Ryu shot a shocked look and asked if they really knew Chikia, and Alice nodded. Chikia is on the hero team, hauling in reconnaissance info and details, even if her squad runs a bit differently from the main heroes. Because they're both from the same city, she pulls him aside and begs for help with her problem. Then Ryu shoots back, "Wait, what do you mean exactly?" The girl says the trade in prohibited goods is booming in this country, and it has to be shut down. Ryu gets it fast. Alice wants the exact same thing they do. Alice shot back that she already knew the whole story, how they slipped into the city to rescue the servants, dressed as rich folks, and wormed their way into a merchant dealing in forbidden goods. She can hand them a ton of useful intel. Then she leans in and fires the question. What do they think? Will they help free the servants? And she can't wait to hear their answer. Rue paused for a heartbeat, then leaned in and asked the girl to let him uncover why everything spiraled into this exact nightmare. If Alice is an intelligence, then why doesn't she just free the servants herself? She claims she can dig up information with ease, but the moment fighting starts, she's clueless. She tried to crash the auction once, but they kicked her out in seconds, so Rue asked, and she figured, "All right, I'll get help." She went to Pove, and Alice backed her up, saying the truth. Overhunting spirits is wrecking everything. The elemental magic isn't just some lucky power. Spirits gave it to them after they struck a pact with the King of Spirits ages ago, and it's that king who's still the one granting it to this day. But after that explosive outburst, the conflict might finally end, and with it, their magical powers could vanish, forcing them to take on the monsters with their own hands, and Ryu is convinced the hero might lose his abilities too. Alice rushes up to Ryu, begs him for help, and swears she'll repay him for sure, because she's got to finish this mission, no matter what, or she won't even be able to face him afterward. Rue nods and tells her he'll help her. Lur spills that the main character can't stand monsters, but it's no big deal if they're the ones lending a hand. Ryu decides it's smarter to stay back from the hero for now, but he still pushes for more intel, and he turns to Lyra. "Come on, let's talk." Alice looks like she's from a whole different crew, one not tied to the hero, so her data could be exactly what they need, and Tiamat insists this is the smartest move to slip past the hero's radar. He swears that if they play it this way, everything gets sorted. Rue swears he's ready to help, but only if the girl gives him info he actually wants, and Alice straight up asks if that's really the deal. She thanks him, then tells him she'll reach out to the team. The girl went dead quiet, then Karin shot back. "What are you doing?" Ryu answered. "It's a magical artifact," and explained it works almost exactly like their connection. Alice bursts in and says she's already got permission. Then she flings open the invitation and tells everyone to come talk in the room. The girl steps up and yanks everyone along behind her. She stumbles, then faceplants, and Ryu's doubts hit hard. Like, is she really even from the reconnaissance unit? But after a bit they came back, and Alice told the captain, "We're here already." The man snapped back, "We've been waiting for you." A fresh squad marched toward the Ryu's group, and a man stepped up to thank the guys for what they did for Alice.